Okay, so hello everyone. My name's Skippy, and I'm here with Ghoul02. I'm just calling him Ghoul for the run, and we're here to do a live speed run of the DS World Record commentary that I did a few months back, but haven't been able to do it until now. You've noticed that I started the game right from scratch, is because with all of the Minecraft cheating things going on and all, I just wanted to be absolutely sure that there was no doubt about this run. And Ghoul02 here is the only person who has speedrun both the DS and the Switch version, so he'll be providing his commentary as we go along, his 2 cents as we go along. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Goal02. As Skippy says, I've been kind of messing with this game for about a while. I got my DS capture card initially around when Pokemon X and Y came out, and the first thing I did was basically start messing around with speedrunning the DS version of this game, since it's one of my favorite, games of all time. And actually has an incredibly deep and complex combat system once you start diving into it. And this route has been kind of passed down for years and years and years and improved, and it's a really fascinating game and a fascinating run, and it's only gotten more interesting over time, which I think is really, really great. So
Yeah. Alright, so the first day here is pretty much the same as the Switch version, so there's not really much to talk about. As you can see, we are going to be accelerating all of the cutscenes by a factor of 10, because the world record is 4 hours and 31 minutes and 15 seconds, and that's kind of long. It's about an hour longer than over an hour longer than the Switch world record, because skipping through the cutscenes is a lot slower.
yeah,
But
it's it is a huge difference. Like, even the very early unoptimized routes for the Switch version were significantly faster than the DS runs were. Even the early routes for the Switch version were basically just rip the DS run and throw it in the Switch version, and it sort of worked, but you could just tell it wasn't really all there. But even then, cutscenes are so much faster and easier to get through, and it's kind of a funny thing, because it actually is it feels better to do the Switch version just because of the cutscenes, even though a lot of the combat I've always thought was much more interesting on the DS version.
yeah, because the DS version did come first, and so here we just went through the opening. The opening just buzzed by while Ghoul was introducing himself. We're about to see the top screen in action here with Shiki. Now, a lot of things the DS version did right, but what you'll see coming up next, it's one of the weaknesses of the DS version, is that the top screen, Shiki is controlled by a combo map. However, it's always faster to just button mash one direction. You can't hold down you see myself mashing the Y or the A button, and that's because you can't hold it down, otherwise there's input delay. You have to button mash. I wish the combo map wasn't random. You see that the cards at the end, they're not always the same, so it's always just better to button mash in order to deal more damage. I want to get your thoughts on that, Ghoul.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. What they tried to do, the intended thing to do, is you're supposed to kind of look at both screens, and when you're using the top screen, you're supposed to kind of follow the map. You go. I always explained it as it's weird DDR. So you'd hit right. Shiki's maps are always the same as far as what the inputs are and how to get to the end, but the card at the end is different. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to play this mini game. So you're supposed to kind of look and see what's on the end. You're supposed to basically guess what the card is, and you're supposed to find it. However, because the cards move it's random every time you start your new combo. Usually, you just kind of end up button mashing the top screen in combat, just because it's easier and it doesn't change your DPS very much to do so.
Yeah.
There's not really a benefit outside of some very niche high-level plays, especially with Shiki, to just not do the same thing every time. They went for very interesting ideas with it. It doesn't quite fully come together, but you still should be paying attention to the top screen. So it still works. It's just a lot less deep than you would think a really high-level play would look, where you'd think a top-level player would just be watching the top screen, getting the right card almost every time and everything else. But it's really it's not worth the effort, and it also is slower DPS to do so. So in general, it's not something that you're really looking to do very often.
So we are done day 1. You've noticed that there was a save screen. There is no autosave in DS, so if you lose, that's it. You're done for. And retry battles you don't get until day 4. So if you lose any battle before the end of day 4, that's it. You're booted to the title screen. So it's a lot riskier. You'll notice this first battle, Thunderbolt in DS has a programming bug. If you target really fast, only half of the shot will hit due to stun lag. So Thunderbolt is only used in this battle and nothing else. But it's fixed in Switch.
Oh really? I did not know that. I do know that like kind of one of the hidden faults of this game is they went so ham and did so many different things that there are a lot of pins that just kind of don't work essentially. And like usually what I would say is that if you're playing this game casually, you just kind of look for the pins that feel good to play with. I remember like anything that's a slash pin feels pretty good casually. I remember like the
everyone loves the slash pins.
Yeah, it feels good, and like the game doesn't require you to get like super great just to beat the game, right? Like,
here's our first pro thing, and this can also be done in Switch. The pin Shockwave has 9 uses. However, if you have 1 or 2 uses remaining, you can still expend the entire pin. The three hit combo before it reboots. As you can see, I did 3 hits, 2 hits, and then 3 hits for 11 hits on a non-use pin. And you need that because those frogs took 10 hits to erase.
Yeah, there's some little tricks like that. The other one that I know of that's really obvious is if you watch when you use pyrokinesis. Normally what the game expects you to do is just tap and hold for pyrokinesis, but if you just tap, you can actually preserve the pin much longer because, again, much like with how lightning works, we're having issues with enemies having iframes, you can just bring up the fire for a couple frames, get the damage off, and then not burn more of the pin while doing so.
Yeah, in fact, someone told me you can do that on DS, and I was able to do that, but I didn't do it in this speed run, so it cost me a few seconds. I'm 4 seconds behind the old world record, so, you know, it is what it is. And so, you get to choose your pins this time. You notice that I turned on auto sort. Auto sort is automatic in Switch, but here I turn it on for reasons that we'll see a lot later. Now, for the second pin, I decided to choose Force Rounds as my second pin, the Shockwave everyone's going to use. Cool. What do you prefer as your second pin at this stage? Do you prefer Force Rounds or do you prefer the Psychokinesis pin?
It's kind of one of those things where it's a bit of player preference. If you, like, Force Rounds are always there, they're always active, and they're always good, right? Like, if you need the extra DPS, you always have. But if you throw on Psychokinesis and you get that car on the bottom screen, you do so much more damage. It feels so good.
It's a lot faster. I don't think I star ranked a single battle on this day, but oh well, that's fine. But yeah,
it's like I said, it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't matter very much. I think I usually would do Psychokinesis just because I like the high roll a little bit, especially this early.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter very much. You're really just kind of looking to get through these days, especially because the first parts of the game are so tutorial heavy. It doesn't really open up until about day 3, I would say, is when the game really starts getting to all the tools.
I mean, in Switch you can also use Thunderbolt because it doesn't have the programming error. It does double damage compared to DS, so you can always explore that. Ooh, that's 13 seconds is a B on time there. Ooh.
One of the nice things about this game as a speedrun is that you almost don't need splits at times. You can basically look at your fights and say, okay, this fight, if I do it well, takes about, 5 seconds for a normal mob, maybe it's, 30 seconds for a boss. I'm just kind of spitballing numbers here, but you can kind of look at it and say, wow, that fight was really good. I got this boss down in 25 seconds. And normally it's like, 30, or man, I could not, CC chain that boss well enough, and he got out of my grip, and I lost 20 seconds on that fight. But it's very easy to make those judgments on the fly in this game, specifically because the game tells you how long every fight takes. So the main use of your splits is just, how's my menuing, how's my movement? And again, movement in this game is a little bit janky at times, because you'll see a lot of movement with. Do you move with the D-pad or do you move with the stylus more often?
I move with the D-pad more often, but I use both.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another one of those things that can be a bit of player preference. It's probably optimal to use the stylus most of the time, except for the fact that you're using a touchscreen, so it can feel less accurate.
Yeah.
Will go the
So
wrong way.
coming up is the wolf battle. Now for the wolf fight, you really want a 500 yen drop here because the game gives you 3, and you need 5, or else you have to restart your game. So you need two 500 yen drops between now and day 4. And there, I believe the drop rate is only 10%, so it's not critical that you get one here, but it would be nice. So
yeah, it's just a nice safety thing. Like, there's not much worse than getting to that mandatory pin barrier and just saying, oh well, the game just didn't give it to me today. And especially like early on in the DS run where these cutscenes are so much longer and the mashing is so much more involved. I'm actually a big fan of the fact you're able to set the DS down here. Normally when I would do this run, I would have to hold the DS with my left hand because I'm right-handed, and I'd hold the stylus with my right. And it actually, my hands would start to hurt after about 2 hours of playing.
So here for the boss fight, if you actually erase the boss hedgehog before the wolves, you don't get the wolf drops. There's no chance. But it doesn't matter because I think I erased them anyway. Now, what I want to talk about here is once the battle's over, you'll notice that I heavily tap the screen during the results menu, and if you do that, then there isn't that little delay where they say the end of fight voice cut, and that's very important here when I'm holding down on the screen and tapping A as fast as possible to skip the voice sample. And that's the end of day 2. Yeah.
It's a pretty simple thing. The early part of the DS run is a little bit slower than the Switch run. Just on Switch at this point, your DPS is so much higher that the Hedgehog, like, I don't think in the Switch run I've even worried about touching the wolves in the Hedgehog fight, just because you can burst the Hedgehog down on Switch in, I think it's a 10-second fight, if that.
Yeah.
So
this ended up being the longest day in the speed run. There were 2 days that on week 2 that were supposed to be longer, but I did them really, really well. So this ended up being the longest day. This is This is where it's the run starts diverging from the Switch version in terms of equips. In terms of how everything is done, it's exactly the same. But in terms of equips and what you buy, this is going to diverge. It's because in Switch, you start with 5,000 yen, and you also get a really nice equip from the Le Pan Angelique store, which is on this screen, that Shiki can wear. But in DS, you start with no money, which means you're forced to fight a pig, and that hat that Shiki can wear in Switch, she can't wear in DS.
Yeah, it's really just the intro early money is just, it's a really nice convenience factor in the Switch port, and I'm not even sure, is Le Pan Angelique open at this point in the DS game?
Yep.
Okay.
But you can only buy a few items, and one of them is the hat, but Shiki can't wear the hat due to bravery.
Right.
Too low bravery, but in DS they made it, not only did they make it cheaper, the ribbon bond, they made it cheaper, and they made Shiki able to wear it for +5 attack.
Yeah. And the stat profiles you go for on the Switch versus the DS are very different as well, so
yeah.
It just so happens that item, I mean, it would probably be used if we could in the DS version, but it's not nearly as important as it is in the Switch.
No, it gets replaced by more expensive items. Money is really tight in this one, way more so than the Switch version. There's a few things that I can't buy, and I have to buy them later, as we'll see. And so this is just a tutorial battle. You don't fusion, because fusion here only takes 8 seconds, but if you can beat it in under 8 seconds, you're fine. It's a lot faster than Switch. It's about 25 seconds for the fusion because of the mini game. So this is this is the first fight that's on DS only. That's on Switch because you have to fight this pig in order to get your first 5,000 yen pin. Whereas again, in Switch, you get 5,000 yen off the bat.
Right. I believe the Switch version, at least when I was running it, you still would fight this because it's a very quick fight, which helps you digest food faster.
I guess so,
And,
yeah.
like the money isn't like, you know, is a nice little bonus. Because you do want to start digesting food on Neku as quickly as possible, but you would go buy and equip the food before you did the fight. So, quick menu here. This is actually a pretty big deal. You'll notice that he put a different pin in the second slot. That is Ice Blow. And something about this game that doesn't necessarily come up or that you don't necessarily notice is they try to balance pins in an interesting way. So they have a visible attacker damage that you get for using your pin. And like that's, you know, visible stat. There's also a hidden stat that's called efficiency. And what this essentially kind of is kind of the developers try to assign like an arbitrary number for how hard pins are to use or hit. And what efficiency ends up doing is, since Ice Blow is a single use attack, happens one time, and they said like, oh, you know, its base power is this, but we want to make it so the damage is relatively similar. Ice Blow has it's what we call a very high efficiency pin. And you can kind of combine high efficiency with another mechanic that we'll talk about later, and it ends up being incredibly important as far as damage goes, that we have a couple of high efficiency pins.
Yeah. Ice Blow isn't used in Switch at all because Switch favors faster Psychs with a lot of hits that deal less damage, because per hit you increase the cross combo.
Right. And that's just kind of a difference in how the game was adapted. So on the Switch version, you don't have the double screen combat. So the way they tried to implement a similar mechanic to what the important mechanic here was Switch is if you alternate damage between your character and the partner character, you get a quick damage multiplier, which can be good at times. It actually can be slow at times as well. It kind of depends on the fight. But in the DS version, that mechanic isn't there, so you're really looking to take advantage of specific hits to do high amounts of damage. I believe this is probably a decent time to start talking about the light puck action.
Yeah. So the light puck is that green blob you see. It amplifies one finishing hit, only one of your finishing hits, and then it passes on to the other character, the partner. The pass time for the puck is 1.6 seconds. There are equips that will be wearing which shorten that time, but what that means is that because it only amplifies one hit, you want a high efficiency hit to be that puck finishing hit.
Right. So kind of a good way. What basically happened is, as I understand it, was actually added very late in development, and it's one of those things that ends up actually being kind of brilliant when you learn about it, because I know casually I didn't know what it did at all. I didn't really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
What it's meant to do is, because you have combat that takes place on both screens, and it's very difficult to manage this, especially early on when you're first playing it. I think this game has one of the highest learning curves, almost of any RPG I think I've ever played. Maybe any game I've ever played. Totally honest.
So I got one 500 yen drop. That was very important because I need one more. I think I got one earlier, but I'm not sure. But yeah, you need two in this area, or that's a restart, or you fight another battle in the next day. Because it's DS, I'd probably just fight the other battle because it's already been it's 37 minutes into the run. You really don't want to reset. It's not as annoying in Switch, because Switch, you're probably only about 20 minutes in, half the time.
Yeah. On Switch as well, I mean, there are technically backups. Like, if you're in a marathon and you don't get it, you can still, like, on that day, like, there's no point at which the game can lock you out of, like, proceeding. So,
Yeah.
like, there are fights you can do to get the 500 yen pin even on the correct day, but they're a little bit slower than getting them here if you really needed to get the extra fight and you're saying, like, oh, I really want to make sure this happens. But thankfully, like, even if things go like horribly wrong, you don't pay attention to your 500 yen pin count, the game will not lock you out there.
Yeah. So Ice Blow, you notice that because I'm laying my DS down, I'm just spamming slashes. I'm not trying to really time Ice Blow. I know some players do. They use a sub slot Ice Blow so that they can use it only when they want to. But however, in this case, my fingers can't really reach the R button, so I don't even bother. And I think waiting to time it might be worse DPS in the long run, so I'm just spamming attacks at this point. If I really need to save the ice blow, then I will slash downwards with shockwave instead of upwards.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I was always taught. I mean, I followed the like really old route when it was first coming out, and it said to pretty much try to not necessarily time it, but you would definitely put it in a sub slot, and you would try to use it whenever the puck was on its way back. It's one of those mechanics that. So again, every time you pass the puck, the damage multiplier increases, and Ice Blow is a high efficiency pin, so it does a high base damage because it has a long cooldown, right? So essentially, you have this pin that does 4 times the normal damage on a long cooldown, but the cooldown doesn't matter as much because you're only trying to use it when you have the ice puck or the glow puck back, which is going to do more damage. Anyway, so you're hitting a 4 times effective pin essentially, doing 4 times the damage. And then you're doing double, triple, up to 5 times the damage.
Yeah, here you'll notice that I buy a single orange juice and 6 ice creams. Wait, only 6? In the Switch speedrun, you need 8. Well, no, I can't afford 8 right now, so I can only buy 6. I'll get the other 2 later. The orange juice is for another stat called sync. You need to keep the sync rate high between the characters, otherwise the timing for the puck timing decreases, and you don't want it. You really don't want your sync to drop below 80%, or else it's really hard to increase the puck multiplier fast. However, in the Switch version, sync does something totally different. Google can cover that.
I'm actually not sure what it does in the Switch version. I just remember it not being super important.
Yeah, it's basically 100% sync is the fusion, and you can increase sync up to 300%, and it doesn't matter much. So because you can increase sync with just fighting in Switch, you don't need food that increases sync, because in combat sync can only decrease. It cannot increase unless both characters are wearing the same clothes, and really both characters are not going to be wearing the same clothes because DPS is more important. So we have food to raise sync.
Yeah. Also, another thing that impacts sync in the DS version, it's very important, is actually getting high ratings in your combat.
Yeah.
One of the crazy things about this game that makes it such a high skill ceiling on the DS especially, is that the better your fights go, the faster your later fights get. So if you have bad fights in one area, your next fights are going to be worse as well because your sync starts to go down.
Alright, so this is the boss fight. It plays out sort of the same, but in the you need Shiki to clear both sides in order to stun the boss. And now you're gonna save the fusion in case you don't one cycle the boss, because if you don't one cycle the boss, the fusion will let you stun the boss again.
Right.
Here I'm just really hoping I can one cycle the boss. You see this? The puck did 105 damage with Ice Blow because it was a 3 times multiplier, whereas my Shockwave did 44.
You see the multipliers up to 4 times now, almost.
And I didn't one cycle it, but yeah. It wasn't the cleanest one. It wasn't the cleanest one, but bam, and now they would hit it again, and that's it.
It's very fortunate how much faster the Super is. So when they adapted the game for Switch, and well, technically more to the iOS version as well, when they got rid of the top player screen, they wanted to try to adapt the minigame in some way. The Shiki's gimmick is supposed to be kind of divination. She's supposed to, guess what the card is. There's ways of actually knowing what it is. And what they ended up doing for those versions is they said, well, we can't really adapt that in the gameplay. Essentially, your partner characters are an extra pin when you're playing solo. And so they put the minigame for that inside of the super attack. And it makes the super attack take about 26 seconds on the Switch version, which means it's almost never worth doing unless it's very specific bosses that have limited windows of vulnerability.
Yeah. So you can see that I'm 23. I beat the old world record time by 23 seconds. It's because the old world record fought 2 pigs, whereas I only fought the minimum 1. But now I'm really short on money. I have to sell that Lucky Star pin for 20,000 yen. And what I'm gonna buy is a little bit different than Switch. Shiki is gonna buy this. Shiki is gonna get the Star Cap, which is like the Ribbon Bonnet, but the Ribbon Bonnet in Switch was 1,800 yen. The Star Cap is 7,800 yen, and it provides one Fusion Star, which it might help, but it's a lot more expensive.
And really, the main reason that the cap and Switch is bought where it is just to get early strength.
Yeah.
You would do the Star Cap if that wasn't available when we buy it in the Switch version.
Yep.
The two builds across the games are actually quite different. We'll get into that a little bit more once the build starts coming online, as I like to call it. But basically, for the most part, the Switch version is mostly about stacking strength, because strength is very valuable in the Switch version.
Yeah.
And it's significantly, it's still very good on DS, like, don't get me wrong, but it's not nearly as important as what we call the Slapshot build, which we'll get to it.
Yeah. So I've equipped Shiki with the Star Cap and also the shirt called Alive, which really does nothing but just add attack. So now Shiki has 21 attack, she does double damage compared to the previous day. Here, I'm trying to look for a frog noise. There aren't any!
One of the more painful things in this run sometimes is when you're looking for a very specific type of noise, and it just does not want to show up.
Now, here's the problem. Because I cut one battle, I haven't leveled up. So, the drop for the 1,000 yen, the 100 yen pin here is 80% instead of 100%. So there is a 1 in 5 chance I don't get this drop, and I believe I did get the drop. So it's a little risky, but that's how it goes. Yeah, the 1,000 yen, that's it. The blue frog has the 1,000 yen pin, but it's not guaranteed, unfortunately, because I skipped the fight.
So the way drop rates in this game work is enemies will have, on whatever difficulty you fight an enemy, they'll have a specific drop rate. So I believe for these frogs, it's on this difficulty, it's a 20% drop rate to give you the pin, or the 1,000
Yeah,
yen.
I'm at level 4, so 20 times 4 is 80.
So by default, if you fight them, it's going to be that 20% drop rate. But what you can do is you can lower your level, and for each level you lower it, you actually multiply it by that amount. So if you lower it by 4 times, you have 4 times the chance to get the drop. And the other thing that it ends up doing that's kind of interesting, actually, it comes into play, or it's come into play in Passwords, I'm not sure if it still does, is if you miss the drop for the normal difficulty, it'll actually roll for the easy drop as well after the normal drop. So sometimes you'll actually, I believe in older routes, I'm not sure if it still does this anywhere, but you would try to set your level to a specific point so that you would try to hit one drop on one enemy and then miss it on another. So,
Alright, so this was the 500 yen wall. We got the 500 yen drop, so we don't have to fight anything extra. Oh, I'm just looking at the chat here. Yeah, hello Kisa, from the Discord server. Yeah, nice to meet you. And hopefully if the volume levels are too messed up, just let us know, and I'll just change the volume accordingly, because I can't hear the stream myself. Okay, so here, you'll notice that I equipped, re-equipped force rounds. And, alright. So, when I was practicing, I have actually died on this boss until I got better at combat. So no,
this
the
fight
next
can
one
be just kind of trolly in general. I mean, even in the Switch version, this fight is notorious for being either 10 seconds or 40 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like never anything.
So you'll notice that one of the fixed pins is Poison Bones. It's also run in Switch. If enemies, basically that pin has about a 50% chance to inflict defense break on non-boss enemies, and enemies with defense break take 20% more damage. However, if your own characters get defense break, then you take double damage. That's just how the game works.
Essentially, the reason you might say, like, well, I mean, it's a passive buff, but there's only so many pins you can really use in combat. Like, you'll watch right here, and his pins are coming out cooldown so fast that there's not really a point.
I'm aiming for the boss and nothing else. I don't care about the frogs. That's it, it's done.
You really want to get that guy before he dies. because he can kind of troll you and hide away for about 16 years, but you can burst him down real quickly. It's not a big deal. But since we don't need a healing pin, and we have enough, once you have 3 damage pins, you're really not getting more out of having more damage pins. You're looking for whatever passive boost you can have that'll help do more damage. And Poison Bones is probably the best one we have access to in the early game.
Yeah, and basically Poison Bones is one of the essential pins. It'll be used for almost the rest of the run.
Right.
Here we just get the CD to clear a wall later. I like to do that first before attacking everything, so just preference.
It's just nice because it makes sure that you don't forget it. So.
And so we are on. Oh, I have to advance the notes. So there you go. So we're on day 5.
This is Reaper Creeper. It's funny how different this. Like you have to go a lot slower on DS than you do on Switch. They kind of realized, I guess, especially with the way the Switch motion controls work. So if you don't know, the Switch, they basically adapted an iOS port to play on Switch, meaning that if you're playing docked, you use the Switch Joy-Con as essentially a Wiimote. And because you can't have a very steady hand with it, they really kind of let you get away with a lot more speed on that than you do on the DS version. DS version, you have to go quite a bit slower. Your options also never matter on those. You can put whatever in you want. So the fastest option is to always go to up with the zoom. This is some funny dialogue. And one of the, for better or worse, on the DS version of this game, you get to read the entire story every time you speedrun it because the text is by default so slow. Again, for this video specifically, it's raised to 10%. Kind of like it would be in a theoretical New Game Plus mode. For some reason, this game...
That was an accident. I didn't want to fusion. And you don't want to fusion because level 1 fusion might inflict attack break on the enemies, and you think that's a good, but no, because the attack break overrides defense break. So you don't want to do the level 1 fusion unless you really need to heal. So
right, that is the one other benefit to using the fusion attack. You do get a nice little boost of HP at the end.
So the drops here are important. What that Wall Reaper gave you, the durable leather and the Murasame, and we'll be needing both. So this is optional, but we want to cross this so that we get good equips, same as in Switch. And here's the thing. In the earlier DS speedruns, the equips were tailored to boost the puck. However, the Switch equips actually influenced the DS run here because I did a little testing and I found out that Shiki's just a lot better if you just put a lot of attack threads on her, just like in a Switch. And the reason for that is because when Shiki attacks, there's almost no startup lag, if you see on the top screen. So I said, why not give it a try? And now, so Shiki's actually going to wear the cotton biker vest, which wasn't done in previous DS speedruns.
Right. So, I guess we can go over what the quote-unquote traditional DS speedrun build would be. Now it's probably a good time to go over it.
Yeah.
So I made reference to what we call the slapshot build, and essentially the goal of the slapshot build is to send that light puck back and forth as quickly as possible. So you equip a bunch of pins that send it quickly, you do pins that increase the damage multiplier by default, and you're really looking just to capitalize on that big burst of damage every time it comes up. You know, that 5 times damage boost on a high efficiency pin.
Okay. So at this point, the puck is faster by 40% because Neku is wearing the peach turtleneck, which reduces the puck passing down by 15%, and Shiki is wearing the purple sneaks, which is minus 25%. You'll notice that the combo map on Shiki has changed to only a straight line. That is a side effect of the spiked choker. I mean, we were spamming in one direction anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but now that's why the combo map is now pretty much gone.
Right. You can start to see a little bit of like the remnants of the original slapshot build here with how much faster the puck moves, and It's still very, very important in the DS run. It's such a huge DPS increase. And you would think like, well, if you're only looking for like specific hits and passing the puck on a specific time, it would be lower DPS. But the damage increase of 5 times on a high efficiency hit, you'll see bosses lose a quarter of their health on a single hit.
Yeah. But right now, Shiki's doing, see that 29 or 34 damage per panel hit, whereas with the previous, the original DS Speedrun equip, she was doing about 15, 16. So the DPS is important. The puck equips are going to be a lot more important with Joshua, and we'll see why Joshua's weak.
Right. And part of that also is just kind of a change again with how the characters work. Shiki is she's kind of meant to be the default beginner character. This game has such a high learning curve. They intentionally designed the characters to try to get more complicated in their usage as they go.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, that was a really clean fight. But essentially, since Shiki every touch does damage, you can get pretty good DPS just from playing with her. And a lot of players, even casually, will go to use Shiki whenever possible.
Look at this, look at this. This was perfect. Done.
Yeah. And the perfect stuns too, like the enemies are staying in the right spot as well. You want to get them obviously where you get as many enemies as possible, since none of Neku's pins are like single target really. They all will hit like a big area. If you can hit multiple enemies at the same time with Neku, you can save them on time.
Yeah, at this point Shiki's doing a lot more damage than Neku, but Neku still has his purpose, but
yeah.
That's just
and
how
again,
it is.
No matter what, you still want to get as much damage with both characters as possible, because even if one character is doing more damage, it's really still probably, I would say, like, what, 60-40, 70-30?
Yeah.
So, like, the damage is still really important on both sides. And if you can get both characters to do really good damage, you'll really see those health bars just get absolutely shredded from enemies. The other nice thing, actually, about Shiki in this instance is that Shiki never has to hunt for enemies. Sometimes he'll have enemies that'll hide behind objects, or one will go running to the left side, the other one will run to the right side, but due to the nature of the way the top screen works, where Shiki really can only do a couple things. She can either do damage by hitting the button, or she can, I believe she has a guard function as well. She can't move, so the enemies can't really hide. So as long as you're hitting in the right direction on the top screen, Shiki is always doing some damage to the enemies. Makes it really nice for just kind of clearing out generic mobs for fights that you just don't know where they are. One of the more frustrating things about the Switch version, that's not a thing. And that last enemy sometimes will be like a single frog hiding behind a motorcycle or a car, and you just have no idea where he is.
And we're almost done with this. I state, this is just the calm before the storm, and the next boss fight is very, very risky because you are fighting at level 1, and if the boss hits you maybe I believe it's 4 times, you're dead. So you really have to beat it really quickly, and this is the last boss fight before retry battles is unlocked.
Right. I actually believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, older Roots used to play basically the entire game at level 1 until week 3. I'm not sure if that's still the case or not, but the increased drop rate is really,
so we'll
really
keep
nice.
a little solid here, because this is going to be iffy. Now what you want to do is you want Shiki to do her finisher as the bear is attacking, because she has iframes, as you can see at the top. She has iframes, but then I miss time and I get hit, and there goes a quarter of my health, and I get hit again. Oops. And now I'm thinking the run's over, so I have to fusion. That was it. That was almost it. That was almost the end of the run right there. So, I breathed a sigh of relief there.
It was actually, it's funny how close you were to even killing before that. If you look on the left side, you can see the boss HP. Man, you were really close to dying there, even without that. Or even with the burst of healing. But the boss HP, you'll see there's 2 bars. There's a yellow bar and then a green bar. And if Shiki does damage, the damage will come from the top. If Neku does it, it'll come from the bottom.
Yeah.
Crazily enough, the yellow bar is actually about 75% of the boss's
It
health.
is, yes.
So I don't know if they just thought it felt really good when you get to the end of a boss fight and you see the health bar just get shredded. Like, I don't know if that's an intentional design choice, but
It's edible.
you'll feel sometimes where it's like, oh my god, I'm never gonna get this boss, and you'll get down to the green health for the boss, and it'll just fall off in droves. It's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So these are really fun clutch fights like that sometimes.
I forgot,
Especially
is that Super Bear difficult on Switch?
not at all.
Yeah. Because Shiki has her lariat, the piggy, the piggy bear twirls around and does a ton of damage on Switch.
Shiki on Switch is incredibly overpowered, like comically so. But on top of that, one of the weirdest things, the hardest thing to get used to, you mentioned using Shiki's finisher to get iframes on her. Every character has their own like defensive actions they're supposed to be using. Shiki can, guard. Joshua, I believe, has a dodge, and then I think Beats is that he can jump to avoid attacks.
Nope, he can block with the skateboard.
Okay.
Yeah.
But because of that, like, you take damage on the top screen. It's actually like a not insignificant portion of the damage you'll take in some of these like more difficult bosses. On the Switch version, all the damage has to come from the one screen, meaning that it's very easy that if things start going wrong, or like you recognize boss patterns, you can avoid damage very easily. It makes the fight much easier for anything like that. It becomes very difficult to die, let alone talking about how Shiki has one of the most busted attacks in the game. So the way they adapted the dual screen combat to the Switch version is, again, with the iOS version, was they basically turned the partner character into another pin. So Shiki, you would tap the enemy and they would punch it. And when they got the Switch, they thought, well, we could do a little better than that. And they implemented a two-player mode, where one player can control Neku and the other can control Shiki. Well, first of all, Shiki, because she's not always on screen, she has no hurt box. Shiki cannot take damage no matter what she does. And they also gave her 2 more pins, both of which are better than the default pin you're supposed to only have with her, which is really funny, actually. And one of them, I'm not sure you could design a better attack for a partner character in the game, I'll be totally honest. It's just a big active hitbox that does a ton of damage.
I am looking for a 4-chain. The small birds will guarantee, the smaller ones will guarantee at least 2 birds, and the other ones will guarantee 1. What I'm looking for here is getting at least 6 rare metal. And you need the 6 rare metal because you're going to use those rare metals to craft for 2 biker jackets, and they cost 3 rare metal each. And Switch requires that as well. So
this can be a little bit tricky, especially because you got to find that 4-chain, and sometimes there's just not a good 4-chain to take it.
However, this is a much riskier battle in DS. Now, I know, because I've practiced this, that if you've done everything right so far, you will get a level up in the middle of this 4-chain, and there it is. When you level up, you get a full heal, and you actually need it.
Yeah. Again, you could, like, if things go really wrong, you could use the super to get just a little bit of health and try to survive a little bit longer, but
I want to I'm aiming for the hedgehog first, because the hedgehog does the most damage. You want that out of the way. And there's just no time for dodging. I don't dodge at all.
And again, because we're really not looking to block with Shiki on the top screen, getting rid of very high damage threats early is pretty important, because Shiki's going to take damage no matter how perfectly we would play with Neku and say we were trying to avoid things. Because Shiki's main job is just doing DPS, she's going to take some damage over the course of the fight. Of course, she's not here because the hedgehog's not doing anything. And we're also
done. Now look at that.
Well there.
And see, even with the full heal, I still lost over half my health. And yeah, we got 8 rare metals, so that's great.
Yeah.
Now, you actually don't go through. You go all the way around. For good reason. You get the sleek silk. We will actually use the sleek silk later. That was a mispress. You're not supposed to go back.
Yeah, that happens sometimes during screen transitions. You'll just kind of be ready to move, especially if you try to use touchscreen movement. You'll just accidentally step up and go right back where you came from. It's not punishing or anything.
So
the loads in this game are super quick.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to interrupt you. This shopping is going to be very important. It's exclusive to DS. We are going to get the equipment green warm-ups, which is the only uniform you can get in the run, and because of that, it's a really good item because it doesn't block any other equips, and it's faster puck 1, so it reduces the puck time by 15%. Now I'm getting 2 natural puppy shirts for the natural puppy mission. And here, you buy this in a specific order to unlock green warm-ups and to get the ability. There it is. And you don't get that in Switch.
Yeah, so there's a... shopkeepers in this game essentially have what they'll call friendships. And the more you buy from them, the more they like you, the more things they'll open up. And not only do you get new items to buy, but they'll tell you hidden abilities on items. And those hidden abilities don't unlock until a shopkeeper tells you about it. So buying things in a specific order sometimes because, like, there's like a specific math for how it works. I'm not like too knowledgeable on the details, but like if you buy more expensive items early, like you'll get like a big burst of like how the shopkeeper works. I'm not sure like the exact math on how it works out.
It's basically each friendship gauge level is a spending cap. And you want to hit the spending cap as close as possible because if you go way over, it doesn't count. You just get leveled up once, and then the next spending cap is back to 0. So that's why you buy items in a specific order, so that you hit those caps spending caps as close as possible for each friendship gauge level. Now you'll notice here that I buy the hot dogs. I didn't buy the hot dogs on the previous day, because if you do it on the previous day, you get a cutscene. Here, now you don't get a cutscene.
Hot dogs are just food that raise attacks. So we haven't gone over food very much. I guess we could do that here. Any type of food in this game, the characters have what are called bites. And, you have, I believe, 24 by default. So they're 24 or 32.
Thank you.
And you could do 24 bites per day. And whenever you finish digesting the food, you get a permanent stat boost.
Yeah.
One thing that people don't realize, or at least I didn't know this casually, was that those 24 bites, the last 6 are never gone. So you'll do your first big set of like food eating, but you can always digest anything that's 6 or less.
Yeah. So just a moment ago, you'll see that the pin Dharma was purchased at AMX. That pin is not used in Switch. It's used in DS because it's a high efficiency pin that we'll be using pretty much only for the boss. Because it has a very cumbersome activation by drawing a circle on the screen.
It is one of the most miserable pins that we are forced to use in the speedrun, I'll be totally honest. Getting that sucker to fire where you want it to go, basically just doesn't happen sometimes. And it's even worse on the Switch version. The Switch version, getting the game to recognize the circle just doesn't happen sometimes.
Yeah, but thankfully you don't have to use it on Switch.
Oh my god. The early runs I did where I was just basically following the DS route, that was one of the most miserable experiences of my life, was like trying to get it to fire the... What it is, I forget the name of the psych, but you draw a circle and a meteor just slams the ground where the circle does. I believe you get 3 activations.
That is Dharma. That is what we're talking about, Dharma.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for more bird noise here because I need more rare metal for later. Now, I just want to talk about one attack that Shiki has. Shiki now has the air attack, which deals double damage to birds. And you'll see me using that. This is like the only time where I don't spam one direction on the top screen. I actually jump up first and attack, as you can see, and it does quad damage to birds and birds only. So, nice attack.
You're good as
gone. These are some of the most annoying fights in the game in general. So what you have to do for the story here is you have to make this red skull pin really popular. And it has a negative downside of reducing Neku's movement. So you're stuck with this like really cumbersome pin, and like on top of that, like really you love using Neku's dash, and it basically takes it away. It makes it just not work. So Neku's mobility is just so severely hampered here that like really don't even feel like you're playing the game. You have to do these fights anyway, which is, it's kind of nice actually that these fights have to happen just because it gives us a good chance to farm rare metal without having to go out of our way. But these fights are not fun.
No. Well done. There you go, another 8 rare metal. We'll need those later. And the reason why we went for these now is because in the old speedrun, it actually did another 4 chain. So you'll see me save so much time by doing the farming on a required mission rather than an optional one. You'll see me get safe landing here because I finally have the enough scholar type to get it. It's just canceling Neku's fall for later. That's all. You can't get rare metal here, so I just did a 3 train.
Again, it just takes 3 fights to get these, to get the pin to be the most popular one in the area. So.
Yeah.
I will say the other most miserable experience in the speedrun, beyond having to reset at not having the 500 yen pin, is if you forget to take off the red skull pin before an important fight.
Oh yeah, definitely. I see, because we've equipped Shiki with attack clothes just like in Switch, she's doing 38 damage per panel. So that's a lot, and that's significantly faster than having her with the puck passing clothes. Because it's instant. Her DPS is... It's funny how the Switch speedrun has influenced the DS speedrun, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for stuff like that to happen, where like one revelation, something else, or like my favorite example is when like a lot of games will get big patches where they'll patch a glitch, and so players will mess around on the new patch and they'll find a glitch or something that would apply to the previous run as well, but it just was never found or used because the previous stuff just seemed so good and overpowered that it was never really looked at super seriously.
Mm-hmm.
The Switch version essentially forcing changes on the game and the way it worked meant that there was kind of a new reason to reevaluate why things were good and where they would be better used as well. So again, we're still taking elements of the original DS run with stuff like the green warm-ups and the purple sneaks on Shiki and things like that to increase the puck passing speed and damage, but we're implementing a lot of the better ideas that came specifically from the DS run. Man, things like that are just always really cool to see when a speedrun evolves.
Yeah, and you can see because we didn't do another optional 4 chain, I saved nearly 3 minutes compared to the old world record there. So that's a lot of time saved, and now I'm actually ahead of the old world record pace. There's Red Skull gone. We're never using that again. And now I use the orange juice to raise sync. I only lost 9% sync because the battles were so fast. We didn't take a lot of damage, but it's there.
Really, again, if you keep an eye out for, I believe just your star rating, or like your rating at the end of a fight is the only thing that matters for sync. So just keep an eye on that. In general, you want to get as many star fights as possible because it keeps your sync as high as possible. And again, this game has a weird snowbally effect where the better your fights go because your sync stays high, the faster every fight after that becomes.
Mm-hmm. This fight's gonna be really bad. Watch this one. Bang! You saw that? Shiki did over 400 damage with the finisher, air finisher with the puck. So that's just really good if you can aim the air attack, and it's good practice because we'll need to use the air finisher for the boss on this day, the Big Brother boss. I knew I could beat that in under 8 seconds, so I didn't use the fusion. That's just easy stuff. And
see, that was a 4 chain in 36 seconds, so
yeah.
About 9 seconds.
So now, because Shiki digested the orange juice, we have 100% sync for the following fight, and hopefully we don't lose too much for the final fight. As a safety measure, I go to the maximum level here, because you can...
The drops for these fights don't really matter very much, so there's not outside of kind of being swag, you know, the fact that you can do these at level 1 in the speedrun without really, like, in theory it shouldn't matter, but because it can, there's not really a reason to not just kind of max your level real quick before you go into these fights. So we're looking at menu here anyway a little bit.
Yeah. I hate this boss so much because basically there's about a 2-second window where you can actually hit the boss. And none of these other ravens matter because they don't drop any rare metal, but they don't count towards defeating the boss. So you actually don't want to get rid of all of them. You want to use one of the birds on screen to start your air attack, like this, so you can do the air finisher like that. You still need to pass the puck, but you actually don't want to wipe out all the enemies because the game won't reward you for wiping out all the enemies. Only the boss matters.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky as well because you kind of want to. If you don't pass the puck consistently, the puck damage multiplier actually.
That's why I upped my level to max, because of that attack. I said, screw it, let's just fusion while it's on the screen and that should get rid of it. Yeah.
In every version of this game, like, this fight is a bit annoying because the point where he's vulnerable is so whittled that it's just frustrating. Thankfully, on Switch it's pretty easy because you just one-shot it with your super when he shows up, so you don't have to worry about it. But like even there, in theory, I believe you can actually kill him before he in one rotation.
Yeah, ideally you can actually defeat with 2 Shiki air finishers in about 35 seconds, but I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, and you kind of take what you get with that fight sometimes. So.
All right, so biker jacket, get it off, Shiki.
Yeah, so this is actually a pretty important menu because when Shiki leaves the party, she doesn't give you back her gear. And we have a lot of gear on her we kind of like to keep. You know, some stuff like the green warm-ups, for example, is really cheap. We just bought 4 pairs of that, you know, 1 for each character. Yeah. But stuff like the biker jackets, actually, like, we went out of our way a pretty good bit to go get that. So losing a little bit of damage on this boss to make sure that we still have all of this really good equipment for the next section.
This is the first fight where you'll really see the puck passing shine, because now I've got 2 major puck passing pins, and you're going to need them to do 200 damage per, well, over 150 to 200 damage per rally. So I start with Ice Blow, pass the puck, and now we use this pin! I see just one hit, pass the puck, 1 hit, pass the puck.
And you're really looking to try to time it. Your goal with the top screen as well is that as soon as Shiki gets the puck, you want her to do her finisher, so the puck goes back to the bottom screen as quickly as possible. And that's kind of the optimal way to try to get your DPS across with the slot shot mode, which is what this is basically trying to be a little bit. You see the damage 4 times on a pin that does very high damage.
Also, using a healing pin passes the puck, so I do that. And now we're at 5 times. First 5 times of the run.
Yeah, and now you're going to see the health add
320. With Shiki's finisher. That was 265, 320. That's
one
it.
note in that fight is that if he says time for a taste test, you need to be careful not to use the Dharma pin because it does consume all uses of whatever attack pin you use during taste test. So if you need to pass the puck with that, you can use, as he mentioned, you can use a healing pin or something else instead.
And that was really nice, but that's how you beat the boss quickly, just keep passing the puck with one-shot pins. And that was the first fight where I didn't spam attacks.
That fight is so much cooler on DS than it is on Switch too, so it's really good to see.
Right,
it's really fun to get that fight done very quickly.
Goodbye, sheep.
So casually, I'd say this is when the game really starts to get, like, put the screws in and become a much more difficult game, because Shiki's kind of meant to be the baby mode. She's, you know, she's very simple. She's easy to use. Joshua is not easy to use in comparison.
You'll notice that I leveled down to 3 because I want a little bit of health, not too much, because I still want drops here.
Levels in this game don't change anything other than your max health. There's no difference between being level 1 and level 99 other than the fact that you'll have many times your HP.
So this one's tricky. You can have a fast battle if the meteor hits all 3 crabs at the same time, like that. Otherwise, it's a long fight, because the crabs have a lot of health.
We're also not able to gear up Joshua before this fight either, so a lot of our gear for at least like in the slap shot stuff just isn't there. He doesn't have the green warm-ups. The puck is just so much slower there.
So, here's the thing with Joshua. His panels do no damage at all. But in exchange, his combo map is shorter, so he'll get fusion stars faster than Shiki. But that also allows Joshua to wear all of the puck passing clothes in, because he won't do any damage with his panels otherwise. You'll notice that for Joshua, I have him eat a miso ramen instead of a hot dog. That's for sync purposes, because he starts off at 50% sync. You need to raise that as high as possible. And he likes miso ramen. He doesn't really like hot dogs.
Yeah, it's Joshua's whole mechanic. So Shiki, every time you hit the button, she would do damage. Joshua is meant to, like, his hits, quote unquote, target an enemy instead, almost. And then whenever you finish your combo, he does his like burst of damage. And what you're meant to do is you're supposed to, like, you can actually target them, and then he'll use his camera to switch them to the other side. So you can get all your enemies on the side.
We don't bother with that. We just, as you can see, he's getting his finisher comes out a lot faster, but his panels do no damage. So stacking attack on Joshua isn't good at all. We don't bother.
So really what you're looking for with Joshua is to get that the puck passing so that Neku becomes your main source of DPS starting at this point in the game. DPS, I don't know if I maybe mentioned what the acronym is, it's damage per second. Essentially the idea being that the more damage you do in a boss fight or an enemy, the faster things go down, the faster we can move on to the next segment. It's pretty darn important in pretty much every RPG speedrun that you do as much damage as possible, as safely as possible.
So, this boss only takes damage from behind. And that also matters on the top side as well. As you can see, Joshua's not doing any damage, but he's still passing the puck. There you go, now they're facing backwards. Done.
The game doesn't look for damage, it just looks for a finisher, and so you can just do the full combo with Joshua, even if it does no damage, he'll still pass the puck. Dharma and Ice Blow have such high efficiency that it hurts the boss a lot every time they get hit by it. Pretty soon we'll be coming up on force rounds, right?
Burst rounds, yes. And
Burst
that
rounds,
was,
right.
yeah, that day didn't go so well for me. I was plus 30 over the previous record. My Joshua skills aren't as good as my Shiki skills, so...
That happens. I mean, even like if you are good, you know, you mentioned like those crabs need to stand still at the beginning, otherwise you have problems there. Joshua, like, he does do some damage. Maybe the enemies end up on different sides of him, so he does less damage. Maybe he gets bopped once and you just don't pass the puck as efficiently, and again, you don't have the items to really make up for the difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot that can go wrong. It's funny because, like, the first day of later characters are actually one of the more annoying ones, just because there's just no outfitting them and being ready for it. On top of just also, like, your muscle memory, like, you're attuned to Shiki at this point. Even
very important here. We go. The only time we go into the expensive area to buy the fusion, level 2 fusion. We're going to be using that level 2 fusion a lot. Now here,
you have a limited.
Go ahead.
So you have a limited number of what's the name? Is like adamantite or something like that?
Scarletite, yeah.
Scarletite. Yeah, you get one for every day you clear.
So this is a tricky fight. In order to hit airborne targets, you have to look at their shadows on the ground, and that's where you're going to be aiming Dharma. Your first instinct is to aim Dharma where the birds are, but no, you have to aim at their shadow. That's the hitbox. And you see, I just went to 5 times puck on with that. So easy to go to 5 times puck, whereas with Shiki it was a lot more difficult.
The delay on Dharma is one of the hardest things about it too. Not only
I just used the fusion because I saw it's 8 seconds.
Not only is the action for Dharma difficult to use, like you can aim it as you mentioned with like aiming for the shadows on the ground, but like because there's an activation delay, you'll sometimes move out of it. Like it's so awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
Again, that's why they gave it a high efficiency, is because you get 3 uses, and it's a weird activation that also has like a weird attack delay on it. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't take some time getting used to it.
All right. So this is the first Taboo noise fight on Switch. You get a 75% damage penalty if the hit isn't a cross combo. In DS, you only deal full damage when the character has the puck. Otherwise, it's a 75% damage penalty. So now you have to actually watch where the puck goes to do any damage at all.
I mean, thankfully, this basically is saying do what you're doing for this part of the speedrun anyway. Like, it doesn't really change that much. It means you don't do anything with like random side hits. It's actually a much more annoying penalty in the Switch version, just because what a cross combo is in the Switch version is because both characters are able to attack simultaneously. If you alternate an attack between the 2 characters, much like you would with the puck passing here, you get an animation, a flash, it'll say, cross combo, it'll go up, it'll increase your damage. The downside of that, actually, in the Switch version is that every time that flash happens, the enemy essentially gets an iframe, and it kind of pauses the screen for a little bit. So there are actually fights where you don't really want to do that, so it can be a little frustrating. You'll see him here. He's setting up a new pin sheet with a single 1 yen pin on it. That is because at no point in the game do you have to win Pin Slammer.
No. Which is
outside
nice.
of some theory route testing you can do.
Yeah. Because that's good, because I guess they realize that some people might actually hate this game.
I don't know who would. It's actually pretty fun if you can play it with another player, which you can't on Switch, unfortunately. But there's it's a fun little mini game, but it's not necessarily for the speedrun. There were some theory routes for a while. There's a specific Reaper wall that he requires you to play 10-pin slammer with them, and winning that 10-pin slammer takes, I want to say it was like 40 seconds, and it gives you a potentially really useful pin.
Yeah.
But it's an awkward one to use.
We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
We'll see when we get there. So, thankfully, this is the last day that we use Dharma. It is now retired because we just got our first Burst Rounds pin, 10-pin custom. Burst Rounds is going to be the primary offensive psych for the rest of the speed run. It's because it has one of the highest efficiency ratings in the game at 150%. So that means for every 1 attack Neku has, the damage dealt is 1.5, which is incredible because a pin like Shockwave only has 35% efficiency, so coupled with the puck, it just does a lot of damage. So now I'm switching to that.
So if you go over like the math on it, you're doing, again, we're comparing it to Shockwave, which is a 35. We'll just round that to, we'll say 30. You're using a 30 efficiency pin. You're doing, 5 times the damage there, and then you're using the 5 times puck multiplier that you get, so you're doing 5 times. You're essentially hitting for 25 times the damage on any other pin you would be using.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, if you were to do a speedrun of this game in Japanese, you would have to use a different type of pin. There were a lot of very interesting changes behind the hood on the Japanese and the English releases. The most obvious one is the music is totally different, and some of the pin arts are different. But burst rounds were buffed like a pretty extreme amount. I remember I have a Japanese cart, and the saves are actually compatible between them. So I was flashing the save across back and forth, trying to save some time, and because practicing for this game is actually quite difficult. Because you have to basically play the game all the way through.
They want a I just want to interrupt you. They the Reaper wanted a 3-chain of the medium noise, but I'm doing a 4-chain here because this first one has that kangaroo, and that kangaroo drops pop pendulum. So by doing it here, we save a fight later. Also, one thing I want to mention before I pass it back to you is that at the very beginning of this day, there was a cutscene. And at the background of the cutscene, you can see the #1 brand for Scramble Crossing. And it was Natural Puppy. So at that moment, I celebrated because I know that I don't have to do the Natural Puppy brand mission later in this day. And that saves minutes. Several minutes by not doing that brand mission. It's a 1 in 13 chance.
Yeah. If you have it as like second, I believe you save like 1 or 2 fights as well, which does save time. And if you miss and it's the least popular brand, I believe you lose another like 20 seconds or so. It is not fun when that happens, but you can save potentially a lot if you can get it good. Especially if you're just lucky. There's no way.
Look how much damage burst rounds does. But it has that startup time. Look at that, 339.
I always like when you get to the burst rounds part of this run too, because it kind of ends up actually timing really, like the way burst rounds work as a psych is you stand still and you hold a touch away from Nectar.
Yeah.
And he'll kind of charge up a shot and like shoot a single projectile there that'll do good damage. And again, the reason the efficiency is so high is because the windup on it is very long. But you still get, I believe, is it 3 or 4 shots you get out of it?
3.
You get 3 shots, and you don't actually have to like, when your puck passes are fast enough, you can actually get to where it's hold in the direction, and you'll fire, 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 and each of those hits will be a puck pass. So you'll, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times damage. You'll see bosses just, their health bar will go boop, 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 and they'll just immediately die by the time that's done.
Melt.
So, but again, on the Japanese version, you'd have to find a different damage bin just because I don't know what the actual efficiency is.
50%. 50% in Japanese. Yep. It's a lot
3
worse.
times more effective. It is absolutely a wild difference how like crazy it is. So, it would like the Japanese run would require a completely different route. Probably be a fair bit slower as well. I'm not sure. If
well, no. Just like in most Japanese games, the text is faster, but the equips are worse. Here, another thing in the Japanese version is that the ice cream only gives +1 bravery instead of +2, and the brave plus medicine only gives +10 bravery instead of +20. So you have to work your way around that too.
I'm not sure what it is. This is so if you
I hesitate for a few seconds because now I have to reshape my speedrun to account for not doing the Natural Puppy mission. Whoops. But no, I just saved so much time here. Now, I'm going to buy something here that's DS exclusive, which is the Naraka, which is an accessory. If both characters equip Naraka, then the puck starts at 3 times instead of 2 times. And that's very, very good.
Yeah. I was gonna say something I don't think people know this, but this game was like kind of Tetsuya Nomura's like little side project while he was working on Kingdom Hearts as well. Probably one of the most famous game designers at Square Enix, or director, more specifically. For whatever reason, his games have a really big history of getting major patches of changes when they go across regions. I know Kingdom Hearts is especially infamous for every single version of Kingdom Hearts has major differences from previous versions, but The World Is With You is not immune to that. It has a lot of differences from the Japanese to English version.
Yeah. Now I'm not sure what the Japanese Switch version is, if they adapted the English DS changes or not.
I believe the Japanese Switch is identical to the US Switch, but I could be wrong on that. I think they came out at the same time.
So,
I believe a lot of the reasons for the changes is they get to kind of like, it comes out of Japan, they get to like gauge the reception, find things they like, things that aren't like good enough, and they'll change them in time for the US releases. My understanding of how it tends to happen, because at least in Kingdom Hearts games, what they'll do is they'll release the Japanese version, they'll change it, fix it, make things better, release it in English, and then they'll take the English version, make a couple more changes, add some cool new features, and they'll re-release it in Japan as the final mix version. So essentially, they kind of did a lot of that when they made the iOS port for this game, Solo Remix, which became the foundation that became Final Remix, the Switch version. But all those games came out at the exact same time in Japanese,
And
so I don't think they would be different.
Because Natural Puppy was the #1 brand, I don't need to change my equips, I don't need to change my pin deck. I can just walk on and just go past it, and that's literally almost a 3-minute save right there. 2.5 to 3 minute save by not doing that mission. So that was really lucky.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
One other thing I don't think we mentioned is that force rounds are not used at all in the switch run. Not only does like the damage type they do, you know, the single big hit not really work well with the way the switch fight engine works, but also you cannot keep your hand steady enough to use it consistently. I swear that you will like move your cursor a pixel and the game will go, oh, you don't want to shoot that, you want to do something else instead. It's like, no, please. So like I literally, in order to get burst rounds to go off, I literally have to hold the controller with both hands to do it when I was like trying to do that. It is not worth it in the slightest. It is so bad in that version of the game. Again, one of the like important things about the Rooks with You, especially casually, is just finding pins that work consistently for you. And
especially on Switch, you can have a little bit of leeway because Switch really cares about fast pins, whereas with DS you're kind of limited. If you want to beat the game fast, you have to master burst rounds. There's no real way around it.
The damage is so high on them, and again, like because they like efficiency is so important on the DS version, and they tried to kind of like tie efficiency as this hidden stat for like how difficult the pin is to use. You know, again, force rounds have such a long, awkward windup on them that they kind of realized like this is kind of hard to use. Like you have to stand still for, I don't know what the windup is. We'll say it's a second long windup. But you can't like redirect. Like you can't like start charging and then like say, oh no, he's moving up there, I'm gonna do that. And it's actually like it's awkward. It really is. Like there's a learning curve to saying like, okay, the enemy's here now, but I think he's gonna be here in a little bit. I need to fire the burst round at this point. And thankfully, the hitbox on burst round is absolutely massive. But
you can't aim it directly up or down either, which is why we still have Ice Blow. Ice Blow is now our least damaging pin, but it's also our fastest pin, and you use it when an enemy's point blank, because it's the only real pin that can hit an enemy point blank.
It's also a pretty common way to start fights off as well, because it starts the puck passing immediately, so you can start building your multiplier while you're getting ready for your first round hit.
Yeah. Again, all of this is the same as the Switch version. As a story-wise, you go and you talk and you do a bunch of fights. Again, this day would be the longest day in the speedrun if it were not for the grand mission skip, which is completely luck-based. There's probably a way to manipulate it, but we haven't figured it out yet.
DS manipulation for games is tricky. A lot of times it involves using stuff like the time on the system, things like that. The problem with that being that since this happens 2 hours into the run, we're not really sure. Like, there's not really an easy way to know, like, oh, hey, we'll get to this date at this time. It doesn't really work that way with the games that it's laid out. So, it's one of the things that like probably like should be worth looking into, but it's very difficult to know how many factors would be going into that by the time we got there, especially when you realize, you know, we're at, you know, an hour and 18 minutes into the VOD, but this is 2 hours and 18 minutes of real time because we have this amount of cutscenes.
Yeah.
So, and that 2 hours and 18 minutes could be anywhere from, say, at 2:16 if you're playing perfectly and everything goes your way, and you know you're skipping fights left and right. Everything is working out, or it could probably be as high as a 2:25 if things go as horribly as possible. You know, for even a very good runner of the game. So.
Now we do have that fourth one we haven't mentioned yet, which is Ichimonji, which is Lance Lunge. It only has an efficiency of 80%, but it has a higher pin attack, so it still does more damage than Ice Blow to a single target, and it's just another high efficiency sight that you get for free. So we use it when we can't use Ice Blow or burst rounds. Pin custom.
Yeah, it's just quick. You know, sometimes you just want that quick animation to go through. You know, it's a single one hit. You know, bam, here's a quick
Yeah.
bit of damage. If an enemy's one hit away from dying, it's a very easy way to change that. This is the only point in the run at which we're allowed to swap the difficulty down. Essentially, it was kind of a big. This game's difficulty is flexible, so you can always, you know, change the difficulty at any point. You can say, well, I want to play on easy now, or I want to jump to hard difficulty. The category for this is 80% normal, but the game literally requires you to put the game on easy or drop. And the game tells you to do that, so there's a specific allowance in the rules saying you can drop the game to easy for a single fight on this day to guarantee this drop. And
there it is.
you might say, like, well, so what does that change? Well, there are actually like points at which like you could make a case that farming item drops on easy potentially could be very fast. I know this came into play a lot with the Switch version, where there's a pin you can get on an easy drop potentially later on, but like, you know, we talked about how like, oh, I need a 500 yen pin here, I need this type of pin here. There's a lot of little gates like that that we end up having to do, and if you could drop the difficulty to easy, it would change how those work. And when people were speedrunning this game, a lot of us didn't really like the idea of speedrunning on easy, which is what you would normally do.
Oh, on Switch, yeah, it triples the damage if you set it to easy. You deal triple the damage, and the game becomes laughably easy.
Yeah, it's not as much fun. Like, you know, there's kind of like a lot of different mindsets on speedrunning. You know, I want to play the game, you know, as quickly as possible. I'm going to glitch the heck out of it. I'm going to break it. I'm going to put the game on easy so I do more damage. And there's also kind of a mindset that I tend to be a personal big fan of. That's a little bit different, and that is, I want to play the game and I want to like experience a lot of what I loved about the game casually. I just want to experience that same thing I love at a very high level, and that's what playing this game on normal does. It kind of like, you still see a lot of the things that you love in this game casually. Like, the difficulty's still there, the enemies are still dangerous, the fights have a lot of high skill, there's a lot of interesting things going on. But you're also still going fast and still trying to do things. The routing still is really interesting and important. It's just, you kind of get the best of both worlds, is kind of the way I would put it. And, you know, this kind of is one of the things that it changes on a game-to-game basis. You know, sometimes a game is great when you're glitching it. Sometimes it's, you know, or like flipping through it on easy because a lot of the things are still there. But in my opinion, and the opinion of some other runners, when you play on easy, you kind of just lose a lot of what makes this game like really, really fun and speedrun. But there are people that do run on easy or New Game Plus and just kind of, you know, break the game and smile at, you know, the fact that you can two-shot bosses. It's not for me personally, but you know, people that do it love it, and I'm very, very happy that you know, speedrunning is a really great hobby because it's very immutable. You can basically do things how you want to do them. And
I didn't cancel successfully there, so you actually heard Neku say, that's how it's done. So as you can see, for long chain battles, I can end the chain with a fusion because Joshua just gets his fusion really fast and very consistently.
Right. And again, Joshua's just not a very high DPS partner, so when Neku does all the DPS, it's a lot more rational to use those for that 8-second burst and get a lot of quick damage in. So.
And this is all forced, so it's all fast forwarded, and I really need the money. Where I don't think we buy anything now. No, we buy everything later. There's nothing to buy today. In Switch, you get I believe you get the Red Mohawk set here, just because it's +7 damage accessory. However, here in DS, we already bought the Naraka, which is way better than getting +7 damage. The Naraka is only +3 attack, but increasing the puck to 3 times at the start is way better than getting additional +4 attack on each character.
Yeah, again, that just kind of speaks to the differences in the way that, like, the Switch version is just, I'm going to stack as much attack as possible on the main character, or like whatever the main DPS character is, because it's actually beat in the third week. But the build on DS is a lot more flexible and mutable. Like, you have to really think about, like, okay, I'm going to be doing this much damage with the attack boost, which is great, but, you know, 3 damage, say the 3 attack boost does, we'll say 3 extra damage per hit. When you're doing an extra, you know, when you're hitting for 30, you're doing 10% more damage. Bumping the puck from 2 times to 3 times, you're doing, you know, 50% more damage on the attacks that matter. So, just kind of a difference in the way the games and the engines work.
And yep, just like in Switch, for that specific Reaper, you don't have to go through all the options. You just go to Got an Alibi. So if you thought that was a glitch in Switch, no, it's the same in DS. Whereas with all the other people you talk to on this day, you have to go through every option. And when we were studying these routes, yes, we tried everything, using save states to see if, you know, what if you press this option first and this option next? And that's how we were able to figure that one out. Again, the cutscene's going to just slow down for the choices that you choose. 202, then 155, then none of the above. Same as Switch. And again, lots more and more talking. This is a really long talking day.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on some of these days. Joshua's week is kind of unfortunate. Like, I believe he has by far the fewest fights in the run.
Yeah. Now here for the beat fights, this is the second one. We didn't cover the first one because we're talking about other stuff. But for the beat fights, it is possible to try to engage him, but he's a lot more deadly in DS, doing a lot more damage. So it's just safer to dodge him for 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're also just, it's not very realistic to do enough damage to get through him, so it's easier and you're really not losing time doing this, rather than trying to fight him. Like, I believe he can actually drop something if you actually defeat him, but like, the drop wouldn't be useful. Like, there's just no real reason to try hard here.
Yeah, also because when you defeat a boss, there's an extra animation where the screen does the TV static animation, and that takes a couple of seconds as well, so you skip it if you don't actually complete the fight.
Yeah, he's also hypermobile, which is a problem when you realize that our main source of damage is a very slow attack. So.
Yep, so here, another thing we borrowed from the Switch version, here we're going to buy the San Francisco hat. This is the only time you can buy the San Francisco hat in week 2. So if you don't get it now, you can't get it until week 3, day 5, like a whole week later, and that's just too late. So this is important.
Ooh, good call.
And we're going to be using this for beat later. So you get that. So you really want to get it, because you don't come back here for another week. And other than that, it's about the same as Switch. There we go. And that's the end of day 4. Now you'll notice something here that that has changed for day 5. It's a really detailed day, so I'm going to be talking a lot on this day. You'll notice that I buy stuff first instead of buying the stuff later. You'll notice that this is going to be completely different than the old world record speedrun. In case it's because I actually go into B-style threads and I buy camouflage. Interesting. Camouflage is an equip that doesn't provide any attack. However, if the character who's wearing it is in Mortal Peril, which is SOS, which is 0 HP on their half of the life bar, then it provides plus 20% attack. And now here we're upgrading our burst rounds pins, and we're also getting minestrone and some orange juice and the remaining 2 ice creams. Minestrone is a food that Neku really likes, so it's the preferred food to get to raise sync. Originally we had him drinking coffees, but then we realized, oh, no, the minestrone is a lot more effective, so, and it's cheaper too, so get the minestrone over the coffee. And here I don't get insane luck again. I actually do have to do the DB mission. And here it is important that you put Earthshake first. And there's going to be a reason for that. You'll see later why Earthshake must be the first pin in the pin deck. And then we equip just the DB hats, and that should be enough. You might have to fight another battle because I didn't completely equip all D and B, but I have 4 DB pins plus 10 pin custom because I just want the DPS for 10 pin custom, and it's an unbranded pin, so you can do it for the brand missions and it won't really penalize you that much.
Yeah, that is one of the nice things about 10 pin custom, even if they're like over the other.
See, I'm not even using the DB pins, I'm just using 10 pin custom.
Yeah, that is a nice thing about 10 pin custom is that even for later missions, since it is unbranded, you can use it anywhere that a brand would actually matter.
Right now I'm checking. It went to DB! I only had to do 1 fight! How lucky was that? Amazing.
On we go.
And this is, you bought something, a ramen like over a week ago just for this wall. So that goes through. And the Shio ramen, because he wants to taste the sea, and Shio is Japanese for salt. And here it's if you see on my notes, I have here 131, and that's because if you don't care about what the answers are, it's the first option, the third option, and the first option. It's always the same.
Yeah, these don't change, thankfully. Especially Speedrun, a game that had a random quiz at the end, which was always very fun, especially when I started running it in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
I had to just memorize the first characters of each line and know what the answer was based on the first character.
Mm-hmm. And now we have to dress up Neku in all Musratus. Fortunately, we have that. And also, I want to re-equip the biker jacket on Josh.
It ends up being kind of nice that it forces you to re-equip Neku here, because it means that you don't have to worry about getting the 1 DB gear you had on. You don't have to like take it off immediately. You just go here, put all the Musratus gear, and because you have all this like terrible, gear on, you got to re-gear anyway. So kind of, you can save a little time on your
and
stringing it together.
We are actually going to play 10 Pin Slammer here. And this is the big change in the speedrun. Earthshake is first, you know why? Because it has 7 of these. 7 of the spikes. Because what the computer will do is just random pin into the spike. Come on. And that's the fastest way to beat it. And that's why Earthshake must be the first pin. Come on, come. Come on! Come on! Okay, there, finally. That's a few seconds wasted, but there we go. And that's how you beat the CPU really quickly. Just let it run into you and just use that spike. And the reason why you fight and win and play it is because you get that 10 pin thrift, which is the SOS pin at Force. It cuts half your health in exchange for plus 30% attack. And it wasn't used in previous speedruns because it was way too risky. But if you want to set a new world record, you gotta be risky. So now, with 10 pin thrift and the camouflage equip that we just got earlier, that's plus 50% attack as long as your health is cut. And the bonuses do go away if you heal. So now I have to blow into this. I have to blow into the DS, so we're not actually going to see the battle here. But for this one, the pins only activate if you blow into the mic. What was it for Switch?
I think you shake the thing.
Oh, you shake. Is it shake?
I'm pretty sure it's shake.
Yeah.
So.
Because I don't want to move my camera, I'm just blowing on. The only 2 pins you get are blow on the mic to activate. So
technically, I think you're supposed to yell, but the DS doesn't register different things through the camera or through the microphone for it. So all you really all it's looking for is any noise through the microphone at all. So blowing into it is just an easy way to make sure it works. You can even like just scratch the microphone slot as well. Like there's a lot of ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Relatively easily, but the most consistent way of making sure that like it's going to recognize it immediately is just blow directly into the microphone port on it. So I believe it's just you just shake on the Switch version, and even that doesn't really matter very much because you just let your partner do all the damage anyway. Joshua is significantly better on the Switch version.
Oh yeah, because like all he really does here is pass the puck, but if you get the level 2 fusion, Joshua does have the best level 2 and level 3 fusion in the game, so that's nice. But we're not going to be using the level 3 fusion here. I know the previous speedrun did it, but the level 3 fusion requires Tektite, and we don't have any Tektite. We're saving our Tektite for something else.
Don't make this worse for yourself.
Because you can also trade 3 rare metal for 1 Tektite, but in order to unlock that at the shop, you have to spend 25,000 yen. And we are very short on money. We actually won't be able to get that 25,000 yen. We literally have to sell other pins, non-money pins, in order to get what we want. So here we just dodge for another 30 seconds. But you know, we only have our DB pins here, so can't really.
It's kind of funny. In a lot of older routes, and I believe even in the Switch version, you go back to the 1 yen pin deck. So the old notes that were on the original Game FAQs used to call it the Ultimate Swag Edition because you just dodge him with only a 1 yen pin equip.
Yeah, it's because you lose that 10 pin slammer fight, and that's why you switch to the 1 yen pin deck. But here you still have the DB pin deck because you used it to win 10 pin slammer.
There's been a lot of theories about using 10 pin thrift over the years. I'm actually glad to see it make its way into the run. The reason it's not used in Switch actually is because there's another SOS peril item that we get, and if you stack them both, you end up with 1 HP. Which,
Yeah.
like, in theory is very, very fast, but you cannot take any damage at all at any point in the run or you die.
So now we replace 10 pin custom, which are our old burst round pin, with 1 stone many birds. Now you can notice that there's 2 of them. It's because it's class B, which means you can actually equip 2 burst rounds pins in the same deck. And what was it? 1 stone many birds. It just does more damage. It also has 3 uses, just like 10 pin custom. And I do equip 10 pin thrift and sell some money pins. Now here's something that I will attempt. I don't believe I did a very good job in this run, but I'm actually going to fight the Taboo Rhino at the end of this day. And because if you do defeat him, you save time. And it's possible to do that with 10 pin thrift. It's just very, very risky, and there is absolutely no margin for error. But I actually do try to do it, and you do have to hit the Rhino from behind in order to do any sort of damage at all. So I don't do it properly here, and you'll see why, because I have to heal. And this is very risky, because you can just dodge this for 30 seconds, but I actually go and fight him.
You see the half health already there from the Spin as well. Yeah,
I got hit, and I have to blow it, which means this fight took more than 30 seconds. Oh well.
It happens. Most tricks that I've done, you end up just kind of hiding in a corner. It's funny because the Rhino is so big, bulky, and slow that if you just get on the other side of a car, he can't actually get to you.
Yeah.
So, also led to some fun moments in the RPG Limit Break run of the Switch port where
And you'll see,
Joshua can pick up
yeah.
enemies and throw them in that version.
yeah, you'll
So,
see that I lost a minute and 22 compared to the old world record. It's because the old world record did not play 10-pin slammer. That's where most of the time loss came from. So you take a bit of a time loss in order to save time later with doing more damage, and it's gonna show here because I'm gonna run this whole day on SOS.
This works for yourself. This is no way. This is not see ya. See ya.
So again, you're trading about that 40 seconds.
950 damage on. Look at that. First rounds did 950 damage with the puck hit. That is insane.
Yeah, this is crazy damage. So again, you're trading in that 40 seconds early and hoping to make it up in the long haul, but you also have to play very well from this point because again, you have less health. One thing that is nice though is I don't believe there's any other penalty other than the SOS health applied with 10-pin thrift. The Goth Bondage Coat that's used in the Switch version actually forces a hard knockdown if you take damage while wearing it. So that is the one nice thing about 10-pin thrift compared to the Goth Bondage Coat used in the Switch port.
Yeah.
The Goth Bondage Coat is used in Switch because it gives SOS attack boost on top of a very high attack on its own. But there's also like I forget what the actual full term is for it. It's been a little while, but
Jinxed attack boost.
Jinx attack boost. Thank you. The jinx is that if you get hit, it's
Yeah.
the hard knockdown, which
Yeah, we'll discuss that one later because I'm gonna spoil for you. I actually used the Goth Bondage code in this run, so.
Oh, you stack them.
Yeah.
Oh, so you got
why
double
there.
health then. That's gonna be.
Yeah. So we save and we help Soda here. I don't know how he couldn't handle a bunch of crabs because this fight is always for Taboo crabs. So you're wondering how did he lose to these noise?
It's implied that Taboo noise are harder to kill. You know, normal players can kill them. We're just so good because we've done this before. And as you might have noticed, Joshua is a literal god. You know, so that helps as well.
This is nothing.
See, when Josh passes the puck, it's like 200 damage, whereas Neku's dealing almost 1,000 now.
Yeah, the numbers get really wacky really fast. Again, if you think about all the damage multipliers and boosts that we're applying, you know, Neku's got, you know, decent attack. He's doing a pin that does 150 times damage on its attacks, which or 150% of its damage, which most pins you'd be using casually are doing 30% of their damage. So we're hitting for 5 times there. We're getting the multiplier from the pin, so that's another, you know, 5 times damage. Or not from the pins, from the puck, and then we're also getting a 50% boost thanks to 10-pin thrift. We are hitting like an absolute freight train.
Yeah. So this next battle, the final fight for this day, I want us to be completely silent. Actually, wait, hold on. We're gonna be buying 3 sparkling silvers, and we're gonna require that to quest for an item in week 3, as you'll see. This the same item, the King Pendant, as in Switch, and then we buy 2 Brave Pluses, and look, we're completely out of money. So we buy them here because it's our last chance to buy those. And now, let's be silent. We're gonna watch this fight because it's fast. Blink and you'll miss it. The Taboo Bears. Watch this.
That'll do. This is nothing. Bye. Good work.
Done.
Easy.
That was it. That was, yeah, under 7 seconds with burst rounds, with puck burst rounds. Wow.
And again, this is starting from a new game file. You know, he's not, you know, eating a ton of food before this to get like all the, you know, a ridiculous attack. This is something you can do on your first playthrough of the game. This isn't New Game Plus.
So now we're on the final day of Joshua's week. And again, not much here except that we're going to be unable to use one stone Manning burst, which is because the brand is Dragon Couture, but we're allowed to use our weaker burst round pin, 10-pin custom, because it's unbranded.
Yeah, so on these floors, you're like the gimmick of this little dungeon is that you're supposed to use specific brands for each floor, but unbranded pins are not affected by that at all. So on the Switch version, you would just go back to the pins the game gives you at the start because those are technically unbranded. But being able to use 10-pin custom for this is actually quite convenient because it means that, yeah, we're losing a little bit of damage and we're losing some experience on our one stone mini burst, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like, we're able to do relatively similar DPS, and these fights are not all that difficult on their own. This is meant to be like an introduction to kind of this big post-game dungeon that's 13 floors, one for every different thing.
Yeah, and the good part is 10-pin thrift activates here, so...
Because it is another unbranded pin as well.
Yeah. And you see I'm using Shockwave simply because it's fast and I have nothing better to use.
Yeah, you just kind of take what you can get here. Again, these enemies are relatively weak to make up the restriction, and we do pretty good damage anyway. You only have to do 3 fights per floor, and unlike the post game where you got to do all 13 floors just to get to the top for like more plot lore and things like that, for this you do the first couple floors, 3 fights each.
Focus. Don't make this worse for yourself. Just die.
Oh, while this is being done, how hyped are you for the sequel, Neo?
Cautiously optimistic. My biggest concern is they haven't announced the dev team for it. So the original developer for The World Ends With You is Jupiter, who hasn't made anything since, basically. They
Yeah, this was like their one-hit wonder, because everything else is Picross, and they mostly develop Picross, and you're wondering, how could they develop this game if they developed Picross? So it's like...
It's very strange. They did that. I want to say they also did Chain of Memories. I'm not 100% on that. That might have been Hand. But later ports of this were handled by Hand, like the iOS and the Switch port, which did the DS Kingdom Hearts games. And they haven't really done anything lately either, so maybe they'd be on it. Like, if that's the case, I don't know that they have the experience to work with like PS4 and Switch. So I don't know. Like, it's interesting. Like, we haven't really seen enough gameplay to know much about it. Like, again, cautiously optimistic. I'm excited that it exists because it also means the Switch port probably did better than I thought it did. But at the same time, like, I'm a big believer that like the development piece of these matter a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like if you read into like, okay, for example, like if you know that you like, say, Bravely Default on the 3DS, it's a pretty good bet to say that you like Octopath, developed by the same dev team. And not knowing who's working on this, if they're, say, working with like an outside developer, maybe they're having a third-party development for them, like it changes a lot, I think, depending on what that is. Even with like, you might say like, well, if Nomura is involved, like it'll probably be good regardless. But Nomura does sometimes have a bit of a spotty track record with revisiting past properties as well. The Kingdom Hearts games are not great to revisit. You know, thinking of things like, say, like 0.2 or like early release of Kingdom Hearts 3. So really, again, cautiously optimistic but nervous is what I would say.
Oh, yeah. And again, I wanted to do this commentary with you. That was a mistake, by the way. Don't do that. But I wanted to do this commentary
with you. I'm like, man,
no. I was talking about what was happening on the screen. My bad. But I wanted to do this commentary with. Yeah, that didn't come out right. I wanted to do this commentary with you before Neo dropped, and also before the anime dropped, which is going to air this April. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to watch it week by week to see how they adapt this story.
Well, it'll be interesting, especially when you factor in stuff like the extra story from Switch that teased the sequel, which was kind of a controversial decision considering they teased a sequel like with the iOS port a long time ago. So they like have now multiple times teased the same sequel that didn't exist until recently, and I haven't really looked too closely at the Neo art to know if that like is still teased as the same sequel or not. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'm going in it completely blind. Aside from the teaser, I haven't watched anything. Anyway, this is the boss. We're gonna try to do this without any healing. It's really risky. So again, just try to increase the puck as much as possible until a show comes out, and that's a shame. We leveled up, so that means no more Tinpin Strip deactivate. So that was kind of a bummer. I didn't want to level up.
Yeah, the one unfortunate thing about SOS strats, I believe actually for the Goth Bondage code, you actually don't have to keep your health in SOS. So
No, that's the one great thing about it. The attack boost still applies even if you heal out of it, which is why it's used to switch.
For SOS, it's significantly more problematic.
Yeah.
Heal out of
Right now, I just Neku no longer has the plus 50% damage bonus because I have too much health. Look at that! I'm missing with burst rounds, so I have to use ice flow.
This is nothing.
This is kind of the problem with Force Round and why they tried to give it to the high pin rate player again. Like you see the sheer mobility that Show has access to. Sometimes you'll just shoot and miss, and there's not really anything you can do about that. That's not really any mistake that was made. It's just that's what happens in this fight. It doesn't stand still. And unlike in say the Switch version where maybe you can have the partner character apply some kind of a crowd control ability or to hold them in place. Because the fights take place in separate screens in the DS version, there's not really a way to hold them in place. You just kind of have to like charge your laser and hit them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really want Goku to just hold them from behind, so you can charge your laser for 5 minutes. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So the alternate strategy for this was to just do one shot him with the level 3 fusion. Again, I didn't do that because I don't have enough money to do that. If I actually spent the money to get the level 3 fusion by unlocking rare metal and Tektite, again you have to fight more battles for the rare metal, and then you have to unlock it by spending 25,000 yen. Yes, you can beat this boss quickly, but then you won't be able to get the really good stuff in week 3.
And week 3 is like the problem with you might say like, well, okay. The weird thing about that is like you're losing time to your relative the other run, but upgrading Joshua really doesn't help you very much.
It's only for one fight, yeah.
Yeah, that's for a single fight. Even if you could do it, like, say you like, oh well, what if you did it like the start? Like, it doesn't work that way. But let's say you could. I think Joshua's only used in like 8 fights.
There you go.
Like,
it's a 30-second time loss, and that was my first B rank.
Or like, not quite 8 fights, but like he's not used all that often. Like there's only a couple bosses and there's a couple of fights the game forces you to do. At that point, like, kind of just, punt a little bit of his time to save some time with. Beat has a lot of fights. Like the last week of this game is outside of one of the more frustrating mechanics the game can throw at you. You get to go really fast because there's fewer cutscenes and there's a lot of bosses, some of which are I think the best fights in the game are in the last week so far.
So Beats week. This turned out to be the best, the most significant improvement from the previous world record. It's because we're actually going to give Beat the same equips as he has on the Switch version. Because the thing with Beat is that, well, Joshua, his panels didn't do any damage at all. Shiki's panels were at 100% efficiency, so for every one attack you pumped into Shiki, she did an extra one damage. Beat's panels, however, are at 150% efficiency. So I thought, why not just stack attack equips on him and see how that goes? And it turned out to be disgustingly good. Because again, partners don't have any startup lag when they deal their panel attacks.
Yeah, there's no lag. You know, you're not waiting for the game to say, okay, here comes the force round shot. Here comes the next force round
Now he
shot.
has to drink the medicine, because he starts off with 19 bravery,
Not bad.
and that's where the
Yeah.
Minestrone comes in, to raise sync.
So it's definitely one of the more tricky things. You'll see us do a couple fights here.
Yeah.
These fights are specifically just to digest that food a little bit faster.
It actually serves a second purpose. The drop is Tektite, and we are going to get 2 Tektite drops from these 2 pigs. And we need those 2 Tektite because you need 2 Tektite to craft the Goth Bondage coat.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Double. It's one stone, many birds. We deal
Yeah.
2 things at once.
Yeah, these fights originally were just done to digest food, but as you mentioned, thanks to the Goth Bondage Code, they actually do serve a more important purpose than they used to now.
I have to guess. Right side? Yeah. That's it.
That was nothing.
And again, the nice thing about these pig fights is, you know,
That was-
5
that
seconds.
was
They're
A.
so fast relative to anything else you can fight, and you're really just looking to get that food down as quickly as you can.
Yeah. Because Beat needs to drink 2 Brave Pluses in order to have enough bravery to equip what he needs to equip.
And there's some fun stuff about that, actually, because he needs the 2 things. Before the first major boss, you have exactly 5 fights that are rooted in. I say rooted in because this is also, at a certain point in this, is when the game finally realized that a JRPG without random encounters isn't a JRPG at all, and actually added random encounters on screen transition. So it's also the first point at which the game, you know, if you accidentally make a movement error and go the wrong way, the punish can be enormous. We're talking upwards of a minute time loss on just something you can't control in the slightest.
Watch yourself.
And again, you see, Beat does not do much damage at all. 28 damage per panel, even with defense break. So just take a note of that, because it's gonna rise a lot faster. As you can see, he can gather cards to deal to gain fusion stars. We won't care about that. If the cards reach those flames, then we take a little bit of damage. I don't think it's a significant amount of damage because I've never really cared about it. So,
Is the efficiency different for Beat's jumping attacks versus his grounded attacks?
yes, it is. It's actually 200% for the air, 150% for the ground. But you do the ground because the air has startup lag, and
Right.
for the jump itself. Also, against airborne enemies, there is no startup lag. Beat will automatically do the air panel, so there's really no point in using it, enforcing it like with Shiki. It's automatic. So this is the mega sell. We sell all of our money, and that's still not enough money. We have to sell until we get 85,000 yen, and this is why we did auto sort, so we can actually do this. Look how few pins. We have 2 rows of pins remaining, and we barely got 85,000. So the run is that tight. So now we have the money we need to buy the King Pendant and the Goth Bondage Coat. That's what we need. So this is the same as Switch. We get all Beat stickers. We buy 2 Wild Boar pendants, and that unlocks the King Pendant. And that's it.
The King Pendant is just a massive attack boost, essentially.
And Beat can't wear it yet. But it's a plus 16 attack, and because Beat has 150% efficiency on his panels, the King Pendant is way better than Naraka.
Right. I do remember in the old verse they used to always say to try to do the jumping attack with Beat. It's kind of funny that I was always really bad at that, and I was unintentionally doing the optimal thing because avoiding the intro lag on top of just the pretty good damage in general. Kind of a funny thing to see changed over time.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically it's better if it wasn't for the startup jump that you have to use for the air panels.
Yeah, and also the air panels have much shorter things, so you're getting fewer hits in, which in this situation would be less DPS. In older versions of the route, the original notes used to always say, just don't worry about piece
So,
damage.
Neku is equipping the San Francisco, and there's a reason for that, because the San Francisco's ability is, makes him immune to immobilization, which is actually what the boss can, this day's boss can do. So, by wearing the San Francisco, Neku cannot be immobilized. And that's good insurance. It's not as much of a big of a deal in Switch, because in Switch you can still attack with the partner, I guess.
Yeah, I mean you also just don't really get hit if you're playing this properly.
So here, when we go into the Le Pan Angelique shop to get the Goth Bondage Coat, everything is bought in a very specific order in order to not overspend, because we barely have enough money for this. We have to buy them in a specific order. So we get the ribbon mini hats first, then we get the vampire dress, then we get 2 lace bonnets and ribbon mini hats. And we don't get the ribbon bonnet because it wastes a few seconds with the ability unlock thing. So there it is, and that's our last purchase. I think there was one more purchase later, but now we've got the exact same equips as the Switch version, the King Pendant and the Goth Bondage Coat, and it took a lot of optimization to even get enough money to get those, because we had spent lots of money earlier on things like Naurica, which aren't used otherwise aren't used in the Switch.
Right.
So B is slightly better now. You see him doing 54 damage, well 48 damage per panel. He's not his ultimate form yet. And there we got some, we really needed that digest, the Minestrone digested, because now we're at high sync. So when we pass the puck multiplier will actually increase instead of sticking at around 3 times. So now we're about to hit the boss for this day, and this boss, it can end your run. It's you really want to one cycle this boss as if possible.
Good is gone.
And now, fortunately, B can deal with the bats pretty quickly. Again, at the bottom, the bat can do the immobilization attack, which will not affect us. And now look, we're just gonna pump burst rounds into the boss. Like that.
Lots of big burst damage anytime you get a puck hit with the burst rounds, by the way. It's so funny to see.
Oops. I have to wait for reboot. Yeah, there you go. Beat finished it off, so we're fine with that. So yes, we did successfully one cycle the boss, which is a relief. Very nice. And also, we're gonna get a time loss here because, again, in the old speedrun, they didn't do any shopping. All the shopping was done by week 2, day 5. Okay, if you see in the notes here, I actually want one random fight. And the reason why you want one random fight is for Beat to digest the second Brave Plus, and then once Beat digests it, then he can become his final form. And his final form is absolutely ridiculous. So this is good. This random Reaper fight is good because after this, Beat will be able to equip his ultimate equips.
And when you get the random fights, you want them as you don't want to see them happen normally, like outside of like just the one that gets you the sixth fight. Because again, 3 per gets you brave plus down. But the earlier you get your encounters, as you say, like if you were to say like, oh, I'm gonna get 2 encounters this run in theory, you want them as early as possible because the enemy's gonna want you to kill it early. So you know, that fight was.
Digested.
I didn't see the time on the fight. It was on the wrong spot.
It was. I took a bunch of damage, but that's gonna end now. So basically, Beat is going to equip the Goth Bondage Coat, the San Francisco, the King Pendant, and the Camouflage over the Purple Sneaks, which is different from Switch because the Camouflage and the Goth Bondage Coat will stack. So as you can see, Beat right now has 62 attack, but Camouflage increases his attack by 20%. So by itself, the Camouflage is plus 13. As long as he stays in SOS. So now Beat has his ultimate equips, and on the next fight, you will see him doing massive amounts of damage. Note that he was doing 28 and 44 per panel before. We get another random one here. No matter, watch the top screen and see how much damage he does. And he's lost all his health. It's like, you see, he just did triple digits.
And you know, there's like what 5 panels per rotation.
Yeah.
So you're doing, we'll say 700, 800 per rotation. Really similar to what a good burst round it does. We're still doing burst rounds, by the way. Like that doesn't stop happening. We're just basically doing burst rounds faster on the top screen, and we're also not having to aim with the burst rounds like we were before.
Yeah.
So essentially, we've just turned Beat into better burst rounds while we still have burst rounds going.
Yeah. So this is where the most time is saved compared to the previous world record, because the previous world record, Beat was a weakling and all he did, he just equipped puck passing clothes, which sounds really good in theory, but again, because he has 150% panel efficiency and you don't need to aim his attacks, it's better to just stack attack on him. And oh, Uzuki. Now, Guo, wasn't Uzuki the most difficult boss in the speedrun?
She is traditionally in every version of the game the hardest speedrun in the game, or fight in the speedrun, just because the damage output she puts is so high and so difficult.
Watch Beat make short work of her right here. It is disgusting. Like she dodges, but it doesn't matter because he's still doing 94 damage per panel. It is disgusting.
And again, the yellow health bar is actually like the bigger health bar. The green is only 25%. So the fact you can visibly see the health heal off the yellow, that doesn't happen normally. Like you just don't see that. And
basically, Beat did about 80% of the damage there. So it was absolute wreck. 23.5 seconds. I think the old speedrun took over a minute because she kept dodging.
Yeah, a 50-second time in that fight was about what you were looking for, and that was if you were lucky enough to win the fight in general. Because the fight would go on long enough, she has an attack where she'll kind of shoot out these flowers in a star formation, and those things shred you. You'd be fully leveled, and I think 2 of them just killed you. And meant that you almost have to watch the top screen to know to block with Beat at the right time too. Because again, Beat can take damage in this game, unlike the switchboard. So he takes 2 of those hits, bam, you're dead. GG. Try again.
So right now we're 3 hours and 46 minutes in. The Switch version would have been long finished by now. The Switch world record is 3:15 something by Punchy. So we still got half this week to go, even with everything that's going on.
I imagine this is also where a lot of your time save is going to come in as well. This day, there's just kind of a series of fights you have to do. And
Yeah.
like they're weaklings, but when you factor in the fact that now you have consistent DPS as opposed to high burst damage that you can dodge, this is going to probably go much faster than it would have been. And this would be like probably would make up the majority of the time spent previously. Of course, you leveled up there, so you don't get to keep your FOS.
That's fine. So I'm going to explain what's about to happen next. In the next screen, I get 3 chances to upgrade my 1 stone many birds into 1 stroke vast wealth, which is the best burst rounds pin in the game. However, the drop rate on the hedgehog that drops it is an abysmal 0.8% or something. So I have to set myself to level 1, and there's 3 chances because you can't chain these fights because of the puzzle. There's a 41% chance to get 1 stroke vast wealth, a 36% chance to get 2 or more, and a 23% chance to whiff. So I really don't want to whiff, but there is a chance that I might not get 1 stroke vast wealth. We will see what happens here, but that's why I'm going to level myself to 1 because I'm greedy and I want to get 1 stroke fast wealth, because 1 stroke fast wealth, not only does it have deal more damage than 1 stroke 1 stone many birds, it has double the uses and has a shorter reboot time. So,
what's the damage difference as well?
I believe it's I believe 1 stone many birds is 65 when fully leveled. 1 stroke fast wealth starts at 81, so it's significantly more.
Yeah, so you're looking at like almost double the damage with more uses.
And
the
I
efficiency doesn't change.
There it is. There's the hedgehog. So I want the drop from the hedgehog, and you'll know that I get it. Oh, I died. And yes, that doesn't matter much because I only fought 1 extra battle. So think of it as 1 random Reaper fight. That's fine. And yes, I had to die there, but so I'm a little upset by that, but thankfully it was only 1 fight, and also I didn't get the drop, so I'm not happy here. Again, the drop chance, I believe, even at level 1 is about 30%. Here's a second chance.
Watch yourself. I'm digging it. I'm digging it.
And you'll know if you get the drop if when you defeat the hedgehog, you see a blue coin come out of it. And if it's not a blue coin, then too bad, so sad. Nope, nothing. Ooh. So did I didn't get 1 stroke vast wealth? Nope.
Open up.
I get another chance here. There it is. The hedgehog must drop it. But you wanted to defeat the Rhino first, so the Rhino can just 2-shot you at level 1. Didn't get it. That hurts. And of course, this one, I know it doesn't have the hedgehog, so no point trying for it here. Just want to get rid of the Rhino as fast as possible. Now you'll notice that sometimes the damage there is yellow instead of white. That's because it's another game mechanic. Psychs are classified as either positive or negative. Don't worry about it too much in the speedrun, it doesn't really matter, but in the post-game, some enemies take more damage or less damage depending on whether a psych is positive or negative. Yeah, so... Okay. I believe I get one final chance to get one stroke fast wealth with this upcoming 2 chain, and then that is it. If I don't get it, I don't get it. Actually, no, I don't think this does it. I don't think this has it. I don't think. No, it doesn't. So that's it. I am stuck with one stone, many birds for the remainder of the game. I had 3 chances to get it, and there was a 23% chance that I couldn't get it, and that's what happened. And at this point, I'm not going to, you know, kill myself to try for it. There's no point. That's just too much of a time loss.
Yeah. And it's not the end of the world, like, it sucks, it's a time loss here, but, like, if you don't get it, like, the run is still completable right now, he's on good pace, he knows it. Essentially, that's kind of like, a good way of thinking of it, that's almost like undoing a little bit of the luck with the natural puppy stuff earlier in the run.
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
a pretty similar thing overall. So, you hit the 1 and 13, then missed the 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but the thing is, even with one stroke vast wealth pin, that actually allows you to fire a constant stream of shots with burst rounds even without the puck.
Not bad.
So,
Yeah.
That hit the spot.
So.
I'm just selling 2 10,000 yen pins because we will need to purchase 1 more Brave Plus for Neku in order to equip High Face's cap at the end of the game, which is a nice equip.
Watch yourself.
Yeah,
Just for the final
very
2 battles.
not good with this idea.
You see, right now, because I only have 2, I don't have 1 stroke vast wealth, I can actually drain all of my burst round shots and then wait for the reboot. Because one stone many birds takes, I believe, 8 seconds to reboot.
What now?
Takes a long time.
Yeah.
What?
What's the normal evolve trigger for 1 stone many birds? It's do you know it off the top of your head?
It's to evolve to 1 stroke vast wealth, I believe it's shutdown, and then with 1 grain infinite promise, which does the most damage per shot, but only has 1 use, but it also has the fastest reboot time. So it's like a you put all your eggs in 1 basket. That's with a Mingle PP.
Okay.
And I believe because Switch doesn't have Mingle PP, you can, well, it's a lot easier to get 1 stroke vast wealth in Switch because there's this optional Dissonance Reaper fight in week 1. You can get 1 stroke vast wealth as early as week 1 in Switch.
Which also don't really want because it's not as good as Switch.
Yeah. That's funny that you can get pretty much the best burst rounds pin in the game in week 1 on Switch.
Funnily enough, Karya is a much easier fight than Suzuki. Although he is really annoying on the Switch version. He has a tendency to get stuck off screen.
Yeah, so see, he's done in 19 seconds. That was a cinch.
And this is probably traditionally the 2nd hardest fight in the run. Again, on
Nah, there's the Berserk fight later.
I always thought this was part of the
Oh,
Berserk
really?
fight. Oh yeah, I've always at least in older routes, by the time you got to the Berserk fight, you were better geared and ready to handle this. Like you got like the level 3 Reaper and things like that.
As usual, Beat's doing most of the damage here. And I lost my puck. That hurts. Doesn't matter. Now the reason why this fight's so hard is because Uzuki's attack inflicts defense break on beat, which means he'll take double damage on any successive hit.
And on top of that, you still have those weird flower pattern attacks from Uzuki that'll just shred you. So you have like this defense break plus massive damage combo that just is really difficult to avoid if you can't just burst them down before they get those attacks. Like, it will almost one-shot you from full health if you're not ready for it. So
you see that even with the game over, I still cleared that 31 seconds faster than the old world record because the Beats equips are so good and all of the other fights went pretty fast.
Yeah, I always found that Berserk was much easier than the.
And this is the start of my insane luck because I will not get any random Reaper fights on this day. And this one you have to fight, so...
Yeah, this one isn't random. This is...
No.
You talk to the Reaper, he says, like, you know, his whole spiel about how things go on, and then you fight him. Not the...
And again, you see there's 3 birds, but you don't use the air attack because it automatically goes to the air attack once... There, you see that? And that's exactly why you don't jump up in the air, because it cancels the jump if air enemies are the only enemies. That went off real fast. Because again, Beat's air panels are 200% efficiency.
You see the 160, 170 hits, or you know, that, and then on top of that, you get the finisher, he's hitting for 600 almost. Absolutely bonkers damage for this point in the game. And on top of that, there's actually one of the bigger, like, because these fights are going by so fast, again, every one of these fights is giving him, you know, a star, a rank. You know, we're not taking damage, so we're getting very high ranks, which means our sync is not falling very quickly, which again means that our next fights are going faster and faster and faster relative to a run that's having issues or game overing or
the last purchase of the game, the Brave Plus. Now I know in Switch, the fights always start off with the cure drink use, because SOS in Switch is you lose 75% of your health as opposed to 50%.
Yeah. It drops you down to 20%. Like, is it 25 or 75?
Yeah, it's 75.
Yeah.
This one, the battle ends if there's no more Reapers, but if you don't defeat all the Reapers, more come in. So you just have to beat them as fast as possible.
Usually, at least in Switch version, it's super to guaranteed they'll die on the hit.
Yeah. Here, you don't get that luxury. You just have, I've never been able to defeat all 3 on the first try, but with Beat's really high attack, you just beat 1 extra. That's it.
That fight in the Switch version is notorious for, like, if I'm behind in a run, I'll Hail Mary it and just say, well, I won't use the super, because again, the supers are 26 seconds in the Switch version. You know, if you did that fight perfectly, you could be done in 10 seconds, maybe less. So it's like a last-ditch effort to try to save some time, but you can also burn like 3 minutes on that fight.
Here, the only thing you get are stickers, attack and defense. Why not? They're free. And also the attack sticker is actually worth it, because again, every +1 attack is +1.5 for a beat.
+1.5, which gets multiplied by all the multipliers going on. Yeah. So it's not a lot, but it adds up just enough. And then here's Berserk Uzuki Hikaria.
Yeah, I believe I almost died here, I think. No, I didn't almost die here. I healed on time.
Watch yourself.
Basically, you try to stay in SOS for as long as you can, and then you heal when you need to. Like that.
There's that flower attack from Uzuki on the top of the and that thing.
And
is
yeah, I just
so
lost my
hard to
puck,
dodge.
so I'm down 2 times puck again. Doesn't that's why you need the panel damage over puck passing, because you just can't reliably pass the puck against these bosses.
Right.
And that is it. So it's funny because in Joshua's week, you can reliably pass the puck rather easily, and then the game turns upside down, and nope, you can't pass the puck. Nope, won't let you. It's gonna interrupt all your attacks.
It's one of those fights that, like, when it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't go well, you die, basically.
Saved over a minute against the world record there, just because of Beats Equips.
Yeah, and then this day is notorious because, in theory, this day is super fast and nothing happens in it.
In theory.
In practice, you can lose 5 minutes on this day.
Yeah, because every transition is a possibility to get a random Reaper fight. But will I make it all the way to Cat Street without fighting anyone? This is forced. There's still one more chance. Bingo. Look at that.
So that's essentially the halfway point. You feel pretty good if you get through the halfway point without getting any encounters. Usually you expect to get 2 encounters in this day, by the way. I would say it's probably about average. I've seen as little as 0, I've seen as many as 5.
Alright. So now the way back.
There's 1, I think there's 2 more steps, 3 more steps?
Yeah, because it stops at Kadoi.
Yeah. You don't have to go quite as far on your way back either.
And here's the last one! Well, I have the magical 0 encounter day 6! Yes!
Yeah, that. Whenever you get this and you know you're on good pace, you kind of like.
Yeah, I don't care about what happens on the puzzle day with the game over. No, this more than makes up for it.
Yeah, you do kind of the anime glasses push, like, okay, you know, it's time to get serious.
Oh yeah.
It's on.
And now, as usual, we go to level 1 hard because we want to lose this battle as soon as possible.
So again, with the difficulty restrictions, you're allowed to go above normal at any point you want. You just cannot drop to easy for any circumstances other than the 1 allowed circumstances. In this fight, we can drop to level 1, and then we try to get the boss a hug so that we die, because dying there is very fast relative to actually trying to win it. And the game doesn't require that you actually win that fight.
That was godlike. That was about as good as it can get. That was very, very lucky. Minute 45 saved.
So now we're going to immediately remember to put it back on normal and drop it off hard. I've lost runs to that before. Not that you can't win the fights on level 1 hard, but enemies get much more health on hard, so you don't want to do that.
And my insane luck continues.
There's only
This
2 more
was
steps
so
left.
lucky. I have not received a random Reaper fight since week 3, day 3.
Yeah. I believe this is the last step you could possibly get an encounter on as well as this one right here.
Wow,
Man.
so that was a grand total of 2 random Reapers, plus the 1 game over, so that counts as 3. Absolutely
Very good luck.
phenomenal.
And again, the first one doesn't really hurt him.
Yeah, because the first one I wanted.
Yeah.
So
On the Switch version, if you don't get that fight, you just do it without finishing digesting the food, and you have worse gear for the fight. So, it's one of those things, like, it's not great if you don't get the encounter, but it also doesn't hurt you enough. Like, you just say, like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm trading the time for that encounter with the slightly slower boss fight.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, we have some notes in the chat. Hello, Phalone. Sequel and anime hype. Wow. Okay. We had a maximum of 2 viewers on the stream. I don't think anyone really cared that much, but you know what? This is an old game, so it was as expected. And I don't think I advertised that we were gonna do this too much. Only with Discord, so that's fine. People can see the YouTube video afterwards.
Yeah, so this fight has 4 parts to it. The first 2 are like they have their little tricks to get through them. Thankfully, when you do these well, you have enough damage where you get through them pretty quickly. But after this phase, we're gonna lose the ability to use Neku's normal pin. This can be a problem because that also means we do not have the ability to heal it once our pin is destroyed. So if we need to emergency heal, we can't do it. So you need to have Neku stand in the shadow on the bottom screen. That'll make her vulnerable. So you can do damage on the top. We're gonna get the Rhyme pin, which is actually one of the best pins in the game.
So the light is always on the left side. And now you have to hit opposite the shadow, which I whiff. And I lost a few seconds, but that doesn't matter. The rest of the battle went by so quickly, I'm fine with that. Because normally you just hit the left side and then beat instantly one-shots the Tigris, the boss like that.
Funnily enough, you don't permanently get the Rhyme pin after this in the Switch version. Which kind of sucks because it actually would be very good in that version as well. It kind of hits like this great intersection between the two versions where it would be good in either one of them. But that's fine because you'd really only be using it for one fight in the Switch version anyway. So I'm not even sure you'd put you probably would equip it, but it wouldn't save as much time as you would think compared to how good it is in the DS version. Rhyme, because there's a little bit of a delay on her coming down, they gave it a very high pin efficiency, but a very good attack as well. I don't know the exact stats.
I will not be using Rhyme for this, as you'll see. I actually skip using Rhyme because I don't want to go into the pin deck.
Right.
Yeah, it's fine because I can beat the next boss without Rhyme. It's fine. I know people like using it, but I opted not to.
And that makes sense. With the change in build, again, on older versions of the root, Neku was your only source of DPS, so increasing Neku...
what I'm doing here is I'm putting all of the good equips on Neku because after this fight we lose beat.
Right.
So...
Not bad.
So basically I put everything off beat except for the King Pendant because the King Pendant is plus 16 attack. It's just too good on beat. And
right. Beat still does have some fights, like in places he'll be useful.
Yeah.
So in we go. We have the final little few bosses here.
Yeah.
This fight is so much better on DS than it is on Switch, by the way.
Alright. So again, I didn't bother switching Poison Bones, which is completely useless against bosses, to Rhine because I don't need it. I feel that I'm just going to use One Stone Many Birds and Ice Ball, and I feel that's good enough.
Thankfully,
see that Beat's only doing 21 damage per panel because he has attack break, which has damage. Plus, he doesn't have the good equips anymore, so hurts.
Thankfully, this is Kitanji, right?
Yeah, Kitanishi.
He stands still a lot, which makes it very easy to hit him.
Oh, look at my hive! That was clutch. I was about to die there. And then a cut 5 times, 1 so many birds does it. 660. Alright. So I almost died there. That was a relief, because that was tough. Again, the fight's a lot easier if you equip Rhyme, but I didn't want to go into the pin deck and fish it out.
Right. It's one of those things, it's a pretty marginal improvement, even if it does, and if the fight goes really well without it, it probably would be faster without it. Rhyme is just such a good pin, and you're going to use her broadly regardless because of how good she is.
Yeah.
That it's...
and the reason why I don't use Rhyme because it would have been switched out here anyway. So the final pin deck I use is I equip Lightning Rook, of course, and then I equip Tin Pin Thrift over Poison Bones because I'm very confident that I can beat the final boss without healing.
Right.
And
the final boss is I'm not gonna call him a pushover because he's not casually, but he has some very clear flaws that we'll get to when we actually start the fight. And not like in a bad way, but just like there's ways to do just ridiculously high damage to him.
Yeah. So choosing nope on the second choice here is actually one screen faster. Do you like people? Nope. So you do choose that, it's just to save one screen, marginal 1 second's worth, but there you go.
The text box in this game moves slow enough, again, you can read the entire story as you speedrun it, so it makes sense that any little optimization you can do is pretty good.
Remember,
and again,
yeah.
why would you not do the little optimization there when the text
So,
is slow enough?
I cannot heal because I swapped out my healing pin, so this is it. So you want to hit the corners here. No, I missed. And if that happens, just go to the side and just shoot everything at his face. Now, out of all of those colored balls, you want to get hit by the yellow one because that one doesn't inflict any status on you. Whereas the blue one is defense break, and the red one you really don't want to get hit because that's attack break. That'll have your damage. So get hit by any of them except for the red one. Done?
So there's part one. So here comes
And I
phase
barely
two.
have any health. I believe I will need diffusion just to save myself. Again, I was going for
Not a
broke.
huge deal.
As you can see, I'm using Lightning Rook when I don't have the puck because it just does a lot of damage, but it's not a good puck passer.
Yeah, it's relatively low efficiency for what it is, but it's a lot of hits.
Yeah, it's 4 hits at 55%. Yeah.
It's the perfect pin for the switch run. It's not good.
Well, I wouldn't say not so good because it's gonna
Not so
do all the
good
work.
with the puck passing mechanic necessarily. It's still good. That's a better way of putting it.
Because it's going to be the best pin in this fight.
Oh, it
because
is hilariously busted in this fight.
It is busted, and this is... So here, this is different than the Switch in that at various intervals, your partners will light up, and then when you press a direction, your puck will increase by 0.5. And it's at set intervals, so we're just waiting for that to happen. Here's the first one.
One thing to note is you'll see him stand in the bottom right corner. This is relatively safe. It's very hard for the boss to hit him here. Every single one of these hits has an active hitbox. And one of the fun things about Lightning Rook's hitbox goes through all of them. You can, if you're standing in the right spot, I think you can hit as many as 3 heads at the same
Yes,
time.
and as you can see, the puck is permanent, so every single Lightning Rook hit is amplified.
Yeah, so we're hitting, you know,
And look at that
200
life bar go.
across 3 heads.
This is the final boss and how fast it went. And that's it. That was the final boss.
The time stops when you hit the final pin.
Yep, so 4:31:15. And
You get
then...
to enjoy the great ending music.
Actually, no, I had to cut it off because it triggers the YouTube DMCA. It does, yeah. Lullaby triggers the YouTube content.
No, wait, like you still can't buy the song anywhere either.
Yeah, it's weird. It doesn't do it for the for Runaway though.
Yeah.
Only
I don't know.
for Lullaby.
I'm sad. Like, I have every available soundtrack for this game, and there's just
38
nowhere.
seconds. Look at that.
You just can't buy Lullaby.
So this is gonna just fast forward to the save screen right here, just to show the final equips and the final ESP rank, and it's a great improvement from the previous run. Now, you'll notice that there's something called an in-game timer. The in-game timer is way different than what's the real timer. So the in-game timer says 3 hours 48. Yeah.
Still something you want to check every time. It is consistent across itself.
Oh, I'll have to stop it. I'm just restarting. Okay, so that is The World Ends With You DS Speedrun. And I'm thank you very much for watching. Is there any final words you'd like to say, Ghoul?
No, I just want to say a huge thanks for having me, and then a huge shout outs to all the previous runners of this game. You've got Mexican Base Monkey, who did a lot of very early work on the route. eCast did
Oh yeah,
complete overhaul of
Ecast.
the route
Yeah.
as well. You've got on the Switch front, you've got myself, you've got Oro, you've got Succinct and Punchy did a lot of work. You have
Oh,
Brooke, who's done some
Punchy
work
did
as well.
so much work. I mean, I gave, you know, I coached him for a bit, and just giving him suggestions on what to do. But he was the one who executed it to pure perfection. I wouldn't be able to do the duo controller thing as well as he does. He did a phenomenal job. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this run isn't the work of one person or anything like that. So always really important to shout out everyone that's had a hand, and this game's gone through a lot of hands over the years.
Yeah.
So
Do you think there's going to be any? Do you think there's going to be any further interest in speedrunning either this DS version or the Switch version when Neo
mean,
comes out?
I don't know about necessarily Neo influencing it. I think in general there will be people, especially on the Switch version, because it is shorter, it's easier, it's much more healthy for your hands long term to be running that one. I think it's going to, and that time is I think pretty improvable.
Yeah.
But I think the DS one, you have the difficulty of DS capture, and getting that on camera is just tricky in general. I could see it happening just because, again, I think the DS version is a more beloved version of the game.
Yeah.
Just being that it's what most people played first. I think it's a game that does what this game does better, but I don't think that's like, again, if you're only going to play the Switch version, you should definitely 100% do it. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's unlikely that people will be running it in the future. I just don't know when, how long, or what it'll look like when they do.
Yeah. I will, play Neo and I will enjoy it, but I'm not going to run it if there's way too many luck elements like the DS and Switch already with the random Reapers on week 3. That's a real turn off, and I haven't run the DS version since this run because this run had some incredible luck, which I don't think I'll be able to replicate anytime soon. Not without myself going crazy playing this game, running the game at least 50 more times. I think getting 2 random Reapers, both very early, and having nothing for the rest of the game was just incredible luck, and that's what contributed to what is it nearly a 13-minute improvement on the old world record. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of luck that happened in this run as well. That you talked about the 1 in 13 hit on the natural puppy.
Yeah.
2 encounters is absolutely incredible. Even with the 1 death, you could pump that up to 3. I'd say on
Yeah,
average, you're probably
exactly.
seeing 4 to 5. So we're saving time there. I mean, you could argue that like the 10-pin slammer win could have been a little bit faster. Like, a couple of the fights could have gone a little bit better, but like all in all, that's a very difficult time to beat, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, of course I was fantasizing about sub 430 just because of it rounds
Oh
off
yeah.
easier,
Oh,
but
I mean,
it's possible. Yeah.
yeah, it's beatable, of course, obviously. But I do think it would be a difficult run to beat, and it would probably take a decent while going at it for sure.
Yeah. But I think if someone does beat 431.15, I'm just going to congratulate that person. Just, round of applause. And, I honestly, I would love to try to, if it came down to that, if there was like a rival who beat my time, I would love to say that I would try to beat it myself, but I don't know. I don't see it happening. I've got a lot of anime to watch. I've got a lot of backlog. I work a full-time job. I just want to, this run was possible because of the pandemic. And once the pandemic is over, I don't think I'll have all that free time in order to, try to shave this down even more. So I think I'm happy. If someone does beat this time, I'm at peace with it. But I just wanted to send off this game because this game is probably my second most favorite game on the DS. My first one has to be Advance Wars Days of Ruin because anyone who actually knows me, I was a big part of that community, played a lot of PvP games with that, but World Ends With You has a special place, and I spent way too much time on it, hundreds of hours picking it apart, mastering the mechanics, all for this culminating in this one speed run, beating the world record, and I'm really happy with it. And I do want to thank you, Ghoul, for reviving interest in the speed run, with especially at the was it SGDQ or was it something else that you did it at?
RPG Limit Break was when I ran it.
RPG Limit Break. Okay, I think I don't know why I thought it was SGDQ. Maybe because it was the blue background or whatever. But there was a lot of interest. A lot of people watched that run, and I think it got a lot of people thinking about the game and a lot of donations, and it was fun doing this commentary with you. And
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm very glad you invited me to help you out with this.
Yeah, again, I had to edit the video first to just skip all the commentary. I mean, skip all the cutscenes because I don't think I would have. I don't think at 4.5 hours would have been as interesting, because here it was just a much faster pace. We could just talk about the game more instead of just having a lot of dead air.
Right.
All right, so that about wraps things up. Again, if you want to run this game, now you know how. All my notes are on the video as well. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave a comment below. And like and subscribe if you like this. And we'll catch you later. And on behalf of Guru, this is Gippy, and thank you very much for watching.